First sweep coming up.
Big win for the Camelot Kings here, Dan. The Valkyries have done it not since week 2.
It is the deicide for the Oni Warriors, and they have pulled this game back from the brink.
But the rest of the Solar Scarabs follow up, down go the Titan, and Lazarus got the first. What a 1-2 punch from the Bolts.
The damage coming from the Leviathans until Zapman puts them down with the snipe.
Defend their Titan, and the Tartarus Titan send us on to a game 3.
The Jade Dragons have come to play. 5 kills in 7 minutes.
Happy Saturday, SMITE fans, and welcome back to the SMITE Pro League, powered by our good friends over at Alienware Arena. Make sure that you check them out. Go over to smitegame.com/Alienware. Use code SMITEAW to get some discounts on the really cool gear that Alienware has out there. The Aurora Ryzen 10 desktop, the 25-inch gaming monitor that they provide, that not only the pros can get a hand on, but you can too. Once again, make sure to go to smitegame.com/Alienware. Follow Alienware on their social medias at Alienware on Twitter and Instagram, and go check out their website, alienwarearena.com, for all the cool inside stuff as what's going on over there. But here in the SMITE Pro League, we got some big matchups today. We got a first one here in studio with some of the players. We got the Tartarus Titans taking on the Solar Scarabs. I almost forgot for a moment. It's J-Mac and Mifflin bringing you guys the action on the first set of the desk today. We've got plenty of stuff going on. As I highlighted, the first set up will be the Tartarus Titans Solar Scarabs, and after that, we got the Camelot Kings and the Jade Dragons. Both games today very, very important towards the standings here. Tartarus Titans want to get a sealed deal so that way they can take that first seed, and the Camelot Kings and Dragons fighting for that second seed in their group.
Yeah, I'm excited for this one. You know what? I just got to talk about it, J-Mac. I'm just going to go straight in, man.
Go for it.
We've seen some inflammatory tweets from the Scarabs. I've got high expectations for them. Maybe I got into it a little too early because you got to break down the standings, but I've just got so much energy, and I need to share it.
Yeah, right now. Pretty hot standings across the board, as I said. Tartarus Titans, they're up 2-0 right now. Solar Scarabs at the 1-1. So Scarabs have that potential where they could maybe rise up the ranks here with a win over the Tartarus Titans. And then the Jade Dragons and the Camelot Kings going to be a big match later on today that they got to go through. But let's go ahead and talk a little bit about these first two teams in our set. And let's talk about the Tartarus Titans a little bit here. First thing, I'm just going to throw it out there right away. We do have a birthday boy in the room. We're going to be talking about him today. We got Paul, the mid laner. No, that's every day. That's nothing special. That's every day we get to talk about Jithens and people tell him happy birthday. But let's talk about Paul a little bit here in the mid lane. We've been seeing a little bit of a change up to the mid lane. You know, Tiamat and Raijin have, I'm not going to say fallen out entirely because we do still see the Tiamat pop in here, but everybody's been putting a lot of focus on Paul's ban specifically. The Hell, the Aphrodite have been two huge ones that seems to have taken off of him constantly.
Yeah, playing against Paul is a no-win situation. Sure, you can limit some of his favorite picks. He might not blow you up, pentakill on Scylla like we've seen at Worlds of Past. He might not be stealthing to your backline on the Morrigan. But regardless, Paul is going to go out of his way to make sure that he is the only one having fun in a lobby. If it's going to be on the Morrigan, he's essentially just playing Cthulhu, and nobody's going to have fun because you either get one shot or you're getting knocked up 20 times. Or he's going to play things like the Chang'e, and you don't get to have fun because he's got just more escapes than everybody else. Or he's going to play Aphrodite, and you're not going to have fun because he's healing his team, has more escapes, and a stun. Paul, and maybe this applies to the Tartarus Titans holistically, and I'm sure Reddit would echo this. They play an annoying, cringe composition style, all right? They come out to play. They come out to win. They don't care what it looks like or how long it takes, and I got to respect that from a competitive standpoint, but I will be damned if these guys just don't play crazy, cringe stuff.
I mean, it always just feels like a pick your poison going against this team and really going against Paul. It's like, okay, we can ban out 2-3 of Paul's picks, but then what else is he going to bring out? I mean, we saw the Hell and the Aphrodite be prioritized in the bans. We saw Morrigan finally get taken away from him at one point, and then he just decides to go over to Chang'e. Well, we've got Paul, the birthday boy, standing by with Dolson for our pregame interview.
That's right. Paul is with me. First off, happy birthday, Paul.
Thank you.
Is it also Aurora's birthday?
Is
that true?
Yes, it is.
Did that go into the team building, you and Aurora having the same birthday when you guys were building out this roster?
I don't think so, but we can go with that.
It just worked out that way. Any birthday wishes, any gods you want to play because it's your birthday? You might be able to win over your teammates. I really want to play this god.
Maybe Hebo. I don't know, dude.
Maybe a Hebo, although the Scarabs are watching, so definitely not
True.
Hebo.
Okay.
Don't prep for the Hebo, no matter what.
Don't ban it, please.
But also don't ban it. Look, speaking of picks and bans, feels like you guys have a clear-cut style of play that you're looking for, but if that gets banned out, Morrigan, Cthulhu, things like that, you're able to adapt. Do you think you guys are one of the more versatile teams in the league right now?
Yeah, I like playing gods like, for instance, like the Hebo and stuff like that. But when I need to play something like an Afro, it's not something I actually like really enjoy playing. But if I think it's good, I'm gonna play it.
Well, how about the Scarabs? Because they seem like they're a adaptable team as well. They've gone 5 games in both of their sets so far here in this group. Do you expect a long one?
I don't know. It could go anyway. I'm not sure, to be honest. We'll have to see.
Well, luckily you guys have already stamped your way into the Phase 3 playoffs. So this one, just for securing that seeding. Happy birthday, best of luck, and we'll go back to the desk to start it off.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. So 2 birthday boys, Paul and Aurora, and then if you want to throw Jithens in there, might as well just toss that name out there because Mifflin already did, so we'll say it. Happy birthday to all 3 of you over here in our studio. But, man, they got a tough matchup going against here in the Scarabs. I mean, the Scarabs have taken both the teams they fought so far in the group stage all the way to game number 5, so there's a lot of potential that we could see another game 5 set coming out of here if the Scarabs can hold up to the same degree that they have in the past.
The Scarabs take every single set that they can to the absolute distance. That's kind of their style of play. It's, I want to say, reminiscent of PK, but it's a different style. They'll take you to 5, but they won't be 50-minute long bangers. I think the Scarabs, though, and it's something I kind of got into a little bit too early on this death segment, have got a little bit of an ego about them recently. They've been putting out some pretty inflammatory tweets. Recently I saw from Inbound, he says, our team is improving so quickly. We're getting so much better. We're now a threat. Nobody else is improving. That's the Taylor of that tweet. Maybe you got something to prove now. You're putting a target on your back. But since we talked about the mid laner for the Tartarus Titans, I think we have to address the mid laner for the Solar Scarabs. Baronic has been impressing me consistently throughout the year. He's got an adaptable god pool. Recently, Charybdis seems to be the staple of it, picking this god generally for pressure as well as late game scaling. But that's not all he's got. Baronic is very apt to go towards things like the Soul, another auto attacker. Occasionally we'll see the Yanis. We saw a tweet from him yesterday kind of alluding to the fact that we might be seeing some Yanis gameplay from the Scarabs mid later today. But I think the main thing I like seeing about Baronic is his vast willingness to just rotate out of lane. When we think of some of the premier mid laners in the SPL right now, Shinto comes to mind, Paul comes to mind, and what's the kind of common thread between their 2 play styles? It's we're farming, and we're going to keep farming, and then eventually we're going to be so farmed that we win a fight by nature of just being 5 levels up on the opposition. Baronic takes a very different path to the late game. He says, look, I'll get my farm eventually, no matter what. I'm going to get to that point, but maybe I help my team out with a couple of kills along the way. Maybe I rotate towards the dual lane or the soul lane. It doesn't matter if I have to sacrifice a little bit of farm as long as the team is thriving. And since he's adapted to that style, the entirety of the Scarabs have been utilizing teamwork much, much better recently, and they've been looking much better by that same note.
And we really have been seeing a holistically different Solar Scarabs than we have in the past here. A change up in their god pools, a change up in their play styles. How much do you think that really does kind of affect other teams in doing their research on this team specifically? How do you think that kind of changes up the picks and bans with kind of all of these kind of out-of-pocket things that have just been popping up from the Scarabs recently?
Well, the Scarabs have brought a completely new style to the group stages, so there's less data out there for teams to study. Obviously makes it a little bit more difficult, but we've seen some adaptations. In that Bolt set, I was listening to comms, so maybe I'm giving away something here, but the Kali ban comes out, all of a sudden the Solar Scarabs draft kind of falls apart, doesn't it? It felt like their triple kin size composition is incredibly strong, but you take away one of the key pieces, you target out one of their key players in Scream, all of a sudden this draft is looking a lot worse, and the Solar Scarabs kind of fall back to their older style of more aggressive early game play, and that's a style that did not see a whole lot of wins despite looking good at times. The Solar Scarabs certainly have some adaptability, but they've got less functional compositions, I think, than the majority of the league right now. When you think of the Oni Warriors, you think of the Camelot Kings, they've got 3-4 distinct play styles that they can bring that have seen just a massive amount of success throughout the year. The Solar Scarabs, on the other hand, we've seen 2-3 drafts from them total, and only 2 of them have really worked out consistently.
Going up here against the Tartarus sides, I think it's an important thing that Paul brought up during his interview is a god may not be the most fun one to play out there, namely, he talked kind of the Aphrodite there, but it's something that he's willing to play if it's what's going to get the win for his team, and I think that's what a lot of these players end up having to go through. I mean, Archeo is one that I know a lot of the solo laners aren't the biggest fan of having to play all the time just because of the nature of Archeo herself. But if it's going to get them the win, it's going to come out here, and it's going to be played in the hands of some of these top-level players. We've seen a lot of composition change-ups across the group stage. We've seen all kinds of different gods rise up here. And one of the big things I think that popped up yesterday to us was the Tartarus Titans got kind of the comp they brought back in like 3 weeks ago and was wildly successful then. Still comes back and seems to be wildly successful today.
But speaking of that composition, it's the double Cthulhu that you're talking about. The Solar Scarabs, if they are allowed to go towards the draft that we saw earlier on in the group stages with Charybdis, a Hunter, and a Kali, that works against the double Cthulhu draft. So the Tartarus Titans may be walking into a trap if they're kind of over-focused on just getting the picks that they want and not addressing what the Scarabs are bringing. But I said it earlier, one ban from the Olympus Bolts kind of shut down the entirety of the Scarabs draft, and it's Scream's Kali. If I see that ban from the Titans, I'm very happy to see them just go ahead and run their Morrigan Cthulhu or Aphrodite Cthulhu or whatever strange, outlandish draft they choose to run today. And there it is immediately, Kali banned out.
Picks and bans for game number 1 is here, right in the studio. Best of 5 set, Tartarus Titans and Solar Scarabs. The first ban's off the table, Kali.
Ooh, targets.
And also a Sylvanas, a very important target ban as you highlight here with the, with the hell on the opposite side. Yes, that's a shot at Paul. But Sylvanas was one that Bobby, inbound, if you're unfamiliar being the name there, this is one that he was, I'm not going to say hard carrying, but this is definitely one that he himself was putting a lot of work in with this team.
I think this is the exact same top 3 bans we saw in Game 4 from the Olympus Bolts up against the Solar Scarabs, Kali, Sylvanas, and Oleron. That's the draft that the Scarabs were trying to run non-stop. So now they've got to go a little deeper in the God pool. But with both teams putting out so many targeted bans, this leaves a lot of value on the table. I'm sure Aggro would be screaming from the rooftops if you were here on the desk that Geb should get first pick, but you've also got Yamoja still available at this point. Terra's out there. Plenty of mid-lane selections that could throw a wrench in the works. I'm excited to see how this one pans out. It's not often you see this many targeted bans in a game 1 at a best of 5.
It's usually, game 3, game 4, and even into game 5 where you see the hard target bans like the Scarabs are doing here against Paul. 3 of Paul's signature picks taken off the table instantly by the Solar Scarabs. Hell, the Morrigan, and Aphrodite. One of those picks that we talked a little bit about with him in the interview. On the opposite side here, that Oleron that we were discussing, the Kali, that Scream was looking so strong on in this Sylvanas. So Titans have the pick of the litter here for first pick, honestly. I mean, they've got all the top supports. They've got top solo laners, big mages that they can grab, some of the hunters too. I mean, we saw Charybdis be prioritized between both of these teams, really. I mean, Cyclone Spin has enjoyed playing it, and then on the opposite side of the pond here, Bronic has also loved it.
Yeah, I think you may have hit the nail on the head. I was going to say Charybdis could be a good first pick selection for the Tartarus Titans just to limit what the Solar Scarabs are trying to accrue from themselves, but instead it's Camazotz locked in first, and you would be hard-pressed to find an argument to take Camazotz away from the Tartarus Titans, right? I mean, Layers has had a phenomenal performance on this pick in particular for years, back in the console days, on PC as well. In the last 6 games, I believe it's like 48 kills, 6 deaths for Layers, or some ridiculous slash line like that, and a couple of those games were on this pick. Exactly. Even yesterday, we saw 10-1 put up by the jungler of the Tartarus Titans. It's a very safe pick. There's not very many good counters pick selections. Terra, I would count amongst them, as Vampiric Bats does apply a dot, which means that Earthen Fury should get procced for the heal every single time if you're using it for that utility. And Terra is the selection for the Solar Scarabs. They've also got Charybdis, decent flex potential, could go mid, could go Hunter.
And it's not just Layers is having, teams are having difficult killing, which is surprising that a jungler is living so often. Benji has also been going relatively undying in some of the games. In the last set, not the one that was played yesterday, but the previous one, he only died 1 time in like a 4-game set, and that's completely unheard of, just out of pocket out of there. But now jumping here with the Tartarus Titans, they got the Camazotz and Yamoja, Terra and Charybdis on the opposite side, so the Solar Scarabs are still going to go with some of their big picks in that Charybdis, and then the Nike as that third selection for the Titans. And the Solar Scarabs looking back at this Hades, and really they're one of the only teams that are kind of prioritizing this god.
I mean, I think SOT might be one of the only players on the planet right now to bring out the full potential of this pick. I'll hop on a soapbox for a second.
Go for it.
I've been watching a lot of VODs recently because we're getting ready for Worlds. I want to make sure that I've got a firm grasp on what these teams are doing, how they're winning, and what they're really trying to play through, who they're facilitating. I wouldn't say that SOT is a focal point for the Solar Scarabs. They're not going out of their way, for the most part, to facilitate this guy, but they don't need to. For my money, Solo or Troll is the best mechanical player in the world, full stop, throughout all of time. You could talk about Baskin at his peak. You could talk about what Zero Gars did to revitalize the jungle. You could talk about all these guys. You could talk about Yaman's insane run through mid. I think as far as mechanical individual play goes, SOT might just be the peak.
Well, so far here in the ban column, it has been nothing but Paul bans out of the Solar Scarabs. I understand he's the birthday boy here, but my goodness, 5 targeted bans out of the Solar Scarabs towards this mid laner, making sure to put Paul as far back in his god pool as they can. The problem is that God pool extends so far back on here. We do have a little tweet actually popping up from SOT. Happy birthday to the GOATs, Paul and Aurora. Much love. Sorry, I'm going to ruin your birthdays. We'll see if he can live up to that expectation, see if he can live up to that tweet. On the other side for the Bands, it is the Dodgy and Susano taking a shot in the jungle since that Kamazats has already been picked up for the Titans.
Yeah, you know what? I trust SOT. If he's putting out a tweet like that, he's got something cooking up. He's one of the more quiet members of the Solar Scarabs and a quiet member on a very loud team. Heimdall the selection for the Hunter here, so it is very likely Charybdis headed towards mid with Heimdall holding it down in the long lane. A very safe back line for both of these Hunters. Charybdis, nigh unkillable, can just remove herself from the play field and walk away with a faster to separate essentially. And Heimdall, the god of a CC immune dash and a teleport. Going to be difficult for the Tartarus Titans to dive, but they've got good dive in their draft between Nike, Kamazats, and even Hachiman to chase out with his own ultimate. Could be hard for the Solar Scarabs to start retreating if they start losing out in these engagements.
You know what absolutely blows my mind here, Mifflin, is we see 5 targeted bans at Paul. You know, just in that ban column alone, then you have, you know, the Charybdis that gets picked up. And the fact he still gets Tiamat as a priority pick after all of this. They say, you know what, we're going to spend 5 bans against Paul. And he says, okay, cool. I guess I'll just play Tiamat. Oh, woe is me.
But here's the thing about Paul. Look at the 5 bans. They're eclectic picks for the most part. Sure,
Yeah.
Soul's a little more so in the standard meta, as is the Morrigan. But Aphrodite, Chang'e, Hell, those are all nearly... Oh, God. Those are all nearly Paul specials. Bakasura locked in for the Solar Scarabs. Think that's going into the jungle. Scream, one of the GOATs in SMITE. He can do just about no wrong. He's the type of dude to bring out like Arachne, Bastet. How does Bakasura match up into this draft? I'd argue not incredibly. You're at least limiting the transformation from Tiamat, but Hachiman's going to hop on a horse, ride it out. Kamazats can fly away. Yamoja, well, if you're going on Yamoja, you're probably already losing a team fight because she's the frontline support. Nike, multiple HP bars, sure, it's a cripple. I think you're going towards Bakasura for his ability to just hard farm throughout the early game. He's got decent power spikes at around levels 6 through 10, but there's a reason we don't see this god too often. It was only the Tartarus Titans earlier this year, actually, Cyclone Spin, who had broken out this god, and they did not see so much success on it. We'll see. I'm not sold just yet.
I think we maybe saw Scream pull this out, I think one time in a previous set during the early half of Phase 3, maybe at the tail end of Phase 2. But yeah, Bakasura is not a god that we see very often, and maybe reasonably so. A lot of the points he highlighted there is who are you going to go on against this team as the Bakasura, but I think most importantly that I'm looking at here for the Solar Scarabs, objective play is going to be insane with these guys. You have a double Hunter and a Bakasura. What are some of the answers that the Titans have to make here to try and deal with some of this objective burn that this team has?
Don't let the Solar Scarabs be alone with an objective, I guess, is one answer. You could maybe try and prioritize the team fight. If you remove any individual member of this composition from the Solar Scarabs, Charybdis, Heimdall, or Bakasura, they take a major hit to their objective burn potential, but that's not the concern. Sure, you've got a good composition for PvEing. This is a PvP game at the end of the day, and I'm not sure how this team fight lines up for the Solar Scarabs. It's incredibly safe, but who are you fighting in? Maybe the Scarabs are looking for picks. They've got a decent pick composition, but the Titans are a team that'll take you to 40 minutes, and 40 minutes into a game, you're not going to find too many picks.
I mean, you're talking about how this Bakasura may not be the best for really killing any of the 5 on this team, but what is kind of one of the picks that the Solar Scarabs might need to go for? Who maybe is their priority of trying to shut down here on the Tartarus Titans here in Game 1?
Well, if history's any indicator, kill the Kamazats, you're probably looking pretty good. Layers has been dominating out of the jungle. If you're able to kill Tiamat, I mean, any hyper carry, really. Kill a carry, you're feeling just fine. The Bakasura is going to struggle to do so. Maybe one of the easier ones is Kamazats. You can at least force the bat out of hell. You're probably not going to kill him, but forcing that ultimate defensively does remove his capacity to dive your backline. So it's essentially a TKO. I am concerned for this Bakasura pick. They've drafted well around it. The other 4 picks in this composition are individually incredibly strong. Terra, I still think one of the best gods in the game right now, if not just straight up the best god. Hades can act as a pillar in the team fight. Good CC lockdown. A 2-second fear is never bad. You'll hear that from aggro, I'm sure, at some point during the cast. But they have not made it easy for themselves here with this draft.
Right now, both teams kind of have a little bit of team sustain their way with the Terra, and then you have the Emoji on the opposite side. How important do you think that anti-heal is going to be for both these teams picking up in the midst of these team fights?
Anti-heal maybe a little bit more so important for the Titans to pick up. Yamoja is likely going to be using the majority of her healing out of combat. Even in combat, it's more so the health shield that I think helps out that god. Whereas Bakasura may be looking towards a Blood Forge. You could very much expect both of these hunters to pick up some form of lifesteal in their kits. Hades and Terra have good in-combat healing, so I'm expecting some pretty decent anti-heal. Maybe a stack from both teams here.
Well, it's going to be a big set here in the studio between these two teams. Tartarus Titans want to secure that top seed in their group, and the Solar Scarabs want to try and fight back and knock them down as best they can. Can they do it here in game number 1 between the Titans and the Scarabs? Let's take it over to Dulcin and Aggro to bring it all out.
What a way to start off this Saturday in Smite action. Titans and the Scarabs in a best-of-5 set. And that is something that the Scarabs have not shied away from. All 5 games, Aggro, the Scarabs have gone to in both of their last best-of-5 sets. Tartarus Titans, they tend to not have long sets here in these best-of-5. So it's an unstoppable force versus a movable object or something like that.
Immovable, Dave. It needs to be immovable for it to work.
Well,
if it were an unstoppable force versus a movable object, it would be very uninteresting.
Well, that's
because
what
the
I'm
unstoppable
wondering here.
force would simply move the
So
object.
which are we going to get? Are we going to get a movable or an immovable object?
Well, I suppose that's up to the Solar Scarabs and how they want to play, because the Scarabs team, I mean, they've looked really good with some more limited compositions, but I think they got a lot of what they wanted. I'm a little surprised that the Titans give them things like the Hades solo that teams
It's literally
have kind
what they want, right?
Yeah, exactly. That teams have kind of conceded is a little bit too strong for them to deal with. They give them Charybdis mid for Baronic and Heimdall for Stewart. I mean, those are some of their best gods. Inbound gets Terra. A lot of good stuff coming on the side of the Solar Scarabs, and this is a composition that we have seen work for them pretty consistently.
And you talk about two teams that have sort of unique, identified play styles. The Tartarus Titans not immune from that conversation either. The Morgan plus Cthulhu composition is something that the Tartarus Titans have liked to play, but teams have identified that in the pick ban phase, and adaptable is now, I think, where you have to look for the Tartarus Titans, because Paul, he's played so many gods in his last handful of games. There's been flexibility throughout the rest of this team. And I think Layers as well has really started to step up for this Titan squad. And you look at Scream on something like the Bakasura, I think would have liked it to be Kali from what we've seen the Scarabs play recently. But Layers, I think I ended the day yesterday by saying that Layers has gotten like 47 kills in his last 6 games or something like that. 3 of his last 6, he's had double-digit kills. And he's only died like 6 times. Layers is off to a great start here in the group stages. Wanted to get off to a quick start here in game 1, but SOT will dash on away and he'll keep himself safe.
Yeah, I mean, Layers, when he first joined this team, something I talked about a lot was how I wanted him to be more of a facilitator, to allow the shining stars of the Tartarus Titans backline to be the focal points. And you know what? I think I was just wrong on that point. I mean, Layers has just proven that he can be a superstar alongside guys like Paul and Cyclone, which is crazy to think about because they are 2 of the best in their role ever, historically. But he really has been that good on this team. In the Tartarus Titans with Layers have really just transformed entirely, because now they just have win conditions across the board. And I like the way they've really kind of identified how they want to play. I think Camazot's first pick for Layers makes a ton of sense to me. It just gives him agency over the game, allows him to take his 1v1s where he sees fit, and he has been so good in those moments that why wouldn't you let him dictate his 1v1s? And I think that with something like Camazot's first pick, when you've got Benji on your team, even though it's not really meta right now, I feel like he can always potentially flex it, because that's been a great god for him in his career as well.
Benji's been great in the solo lane recently. And I think similar conversations that you have about Layers, you can talk about Paul as well, because the adaptability and flexibility for Paul in the mid lane recently has been so important for this Titan squad. The facilitator style of play with something like an Aphrodite or a Hell has absolutely been there. Some action here in duo, but a Riptide from Aurora will keep things quiet for the time being. And so the Solar Scarabs, I think this is a matchup where themselves and mainly maybe Scream will need to try to keep pace with what Layers is going to be throwing out. You can identify some early mindset, though, for the Solar Scarabs and who they want to mitigate here in this game. When you build this triple, what I assume will be a chin-size composition at some point, you know, Benji's going to have a tough time, but already double Sunder there. One for inbound, 1 for SOT. This level 5 already going to be a little bit limited for the Titan solo laner.
Yeah, excited to see double Sunder, because Nike's been meta for a long time now, and people just haven't been building it It's because there's a lot of good relic options. I mean, Meditation so strong, Shell very good. I like that Aurora's picked it up early here. Doesn't give you those block attacks anymore, but still mitigates 50% of the auto attack damage for the duration or until the shield expires. So you like that up against all these auto attackers. I think the Titans, despite giving the Scarabs a lot of the things that I was just talking about that they like, have clearly come in with some type of game plan in order to do so. Because Yemoja, you know, oftentimes we think about her and trapping people in, but don't forget that those walls from River's Rebuke also block auto attacks. And so Hunters really aren't great against Yemoja for that reason. And Baronic and Stewart and Scream could potentially be hurt pretty heavily by those River's Rebuke walls. So I'm putting a lot of emphasis on what Aurora is going to be able to do and how well he can use that ultimate while still maintaining some safety, because it isn't just Benji that's going to be getting sundered. It's going to be Aurora as well.
Right.
And this Tiamat is going to get sundered. I think that you've got a lot of good targets for these Sunder pickups, and I really don't mind seeing the Scarabs have 2 right off the rip here.
So the Solar Scarabs are able to rotate those Sunders on a consistent and effective basis. Should find some pressure early on here in game number 1. Cyclone Spin starting off with something that he's really enjoyed here. Devour's Gauntlet on the Hachiman. Looks like Stewart going to look for something similar there on the Heimdall. Early damage start for Benji here over in the solo lane. Brawler's Beat Stick, first item for the Nike.
Interesting.
Maybe makes some sense. SOT's gone Bancroft, so a little counterplay in the solo lane. Both looking for some damage early.
Boy, that looks like a gankable lane to me on either side, because like you said, no defense at all. I mean, of course you've got the Warrior's Axe, but other than that, that's the only defense that Benji has right now. You've got Sunder to deal with it anyways. Solar Troll is going to be playing aggressively now that he has his Bancrofts. I kind of like the idea from Benji, because no one's been able to really handle this Hades during the laning phase by going these tank options. So why not try something like the Brawlers, be able to actually potentially trade pretty effectively.
Decent little chunk of damage there from Paul onto Baronic, as we will take a pause here in game number 1, get everything all sorted. We'll let you know when we have more info. But it's been a slower start to this game. That's not unexpected, though.
Nope.
Because that is something that the Titans have really started to get more comfortable with, even the Scarabs as well. Think about, I think back to the games that the Scarabs have won in their 5-game sets, where there's been a lot of slow burns in the early game. You'll get to like 20 minutes and there's like 4 kills on board, but the Scarabs are like 8,000 gold in the lead. It feels like 2 teams that don't mind building up their leads in a slower, more methodical way.
And that's the way the Scarabs have been drafting. You know, you draft double Hunter, you're down to go late game, because Hunters are so item-based that you want to get them to those 6-item slots and be very strong in those moments. But a lot of times when we see those big leads from the Scarabs, it's not that they're magically manifesting it.
Right.
It's that they're being aggressive on buffs, they're stepping up, they're invading. And the Titans, even though they've been going really late in games and haven't been particularly aggressive early, they've also been very good about defending their buffs. They have not given a lot. They just also haven't taken a lot. And they're kind of willing to handshake trade you into the late game if you aren't willing to step into their jungle. So I'm interested to see what the Scarabs do.
Oh, fighting already 6 minutes in. And Scream will find his way forward. That's Blink and Ult used by the Scarabs jungler. And an immediate disengage from Aurora and Cyclone Spin. So empty-handed in the kills department are the Solar Scarabs after some left side fighting. We are able to get the ult out of Cyclone Spin, Shell out of Aurora, so not all is lost.
No, I think that's a fine trade there for Scream, and I'm sure he's laughing because he's got 20% CDR. You see he's got his patented Jotun's Baka build.
Yeah, right. We enjoyed that one from Scream, but he's going to have to charge that ult back up. In base, Layers has found first blood, and you do not want to let this Camazotz get its feet underneath itself early, or the Tiamat, for that matter. The Tartarus Titans just walk on in. They not only get the Scorpion, but they'll grab 2 kills.
Okay, so I don't know if the Scarabs, Scream was telling me earlier today that he hasn't woken up early in a long time, and those are,
Is this early?
They're gamers, Dave. Of course, of course this is early. He and I can tell, because that was an ambitious call is the way I would phrase it if I were being nice, but I'm not in a nice mood today.
Ooh.
So I'm going to say...
Right, you woke up early today.
Right, I woke up early today, gamer as well. I don't know what the Scarabs were thinking was going to happen, but Scream's got no ult, no beads, and just eats a stun from Paul in order to try and secure a greater Scorpion. Like, it's just not worth that much.
Maybe Scream can get some momentum going here on the bench. That is a lot of damage.
Yeah,
or maybe it's just a non-tanky Nike. Take your pick. But SOT able to capitalize on the pressure from Scream. You said gankable lane a moment ago, Aggro, and that's exactly what Scream saw as well. Layers is going to get jumped on. Inbound's in behind. There's a bat out of hell, so you'd think Layers is fine here. But at least it's an answer from the Solar Scarabs. Well-timed. And Inbound just looking to force the ult, and he's able to do so.
Yeah, good play by Inbound there. Guarantees that he's going to be able to get that ultimate, and Layers just sticks around a little bit too long to soak that wave. So good bounce back by the Scarabs. I mean, that's an easy kill over in the solo lane, and Benji will be a little bit more wary of it from now on. I don't think we'll see him jump aggressively again without eyes on Scream elsewhere on the map, but I don't know if they really need to even force his jump in that aggressive manner. As long as Solar Patrol can follow with his own leap,
Right.
I'm pretty sure that that's a guaranteed kill most of the time. So I'd like to see Scream just re-gank it as soon as Pillar of Agony is up and ready to go.
That's an important answer back because of where a lot of the pressure for these Solar Scarabs Hades compositions have been coming from. When SOT is able to get a little bit more comfortable, now it's Breastplate of Valor online, you'll be able to turn a lot of the attention over to himself and allow Baronic, allow Scream, allow Stewart the space to operate in these team fights. Feels like Aggro in the group stages. You look at Hunters and their builds. Aurora close by on this purple buff, just making life a little bit more difficult. Should be a secure here from the Solar Scarabs. It is, but Aurora's just bought so much time, and that's Layers now rotating through. Stewart is going to have to buy Frost away. And so River's Rebuke gets used on one side. Looks like Earthen Fury from Inbound popped as well. And so a little return pressure from the Tartarus Titans as Layers makes its way left.
And I'm sure both support's going, yeah, nice, that's good for us, because his ult's really good. And his teammates are probably thinking, yeah, but yours is too. Like, maybe we want to be saving that.
We're ignoring that.
No, we're ignoring that part. The enemy support's ultimate is better because we traded it, so that makes it good for us. But the Scarabs did end up getting their own purple, so it ends up working out pretty well in their favor.
SOT has his ult here. Scream is also close by, and Benji's taking a decent little chunk of damage. His tier 1 tower down beneath half HP. The lowest tower in the game at the moment, but SOT also doesn't have beads. Does have the disengage, and so it looks like the Hades will be fine here, unless Sot sticks around a little bit too long. Scream's on the right side of the map, so would be counter gank potential for the Tartarus Titans. Inbound in and out of the mist, nearly hits the wall. Aurora avoids the stun, but Stewart's around the backside. Cyclone spin, dashes and gallops away, and Stewart just wide on his ultimate. And so both teams exchanging haymakers here, but none of them connecting.
Man, Baronic, though, doing tons of damage already with that
lot.
ultimate. I mean, I think that caught everyone off guard. Just this flat pen build of Crusher straight into Aussie gives him so much flat pen that it equals into a bunch of damage. Nice stun there from Inbound to make sure that Baronic's A-okay. But I think that teams are really still not ready for how much damage that Charybdis ult does even early in the game. And Stewart maybe not quite ready for it to stun Cyclone Spin. I don't know that the just upfront damage from his ultimate would have been enough to kill, but whiffing it the way that it happened was a little bit unlucky. Just ended up not being ready for that CC.
Now these are two teams, Aggro, that are well versed in Charybdis, right? You know, you look at the opening weekend of group stages. It's something that Cyclone Spin played a few times, and it was our first look at a more aggressive Charybdis outside of the Zapman defensive style that I think is now by the wayside a little bit. This is a pick that has now been able to find more pressure in these games. In the same way the Scarabs are around, this Gold Fury should be easy here. Nobody from the Titans around. Cyclone was the only one really on that side of the map, and that's a free Gold Fury over to the Solar Scarabs. Is the answer, though, for the Titans, the Pyromancer? They seem to think so. The 3-man, 4-man grouping around it now. Inbound, half HP, SOT close by as well. Benji and Aurora will be playing Separator. Benji finally has some extra health online. Bulwark of Hope will help out the Nike in this fight. Does he even need it, though? Turns around the damage onto Inbound. That's a clean pick to the Titans and should be a Pyro.
Yeah, it should be for free. I mean, look, the Titans, they keep just daring teams to pick gods like Terra, like Geb, just these gods that don't get out of Yamoja walls. And then they go, great, I'll take Yamoja, please. And that just seems to be their strategy, is waiting to see. I mean, they could have taken Terra first pick. They could have taken Yamoja first pick, but they're just letting the Scarabs seal their own fate with these support picks, then really punishing them for it.
Ooh, that is a defensive look for Baronic, but Cyclone Spin not satisfied. Baronic into the ultimate. And so that's that rotation of a lengthy duration of CC immunity for this Charybdis where you can get out and stay alive. Baronic still takes a hefty amount of damage. Aussie is going to heal him right back up to above half HP. But I admire the aggression from the Titans. Look, you find an opening, you're able to maybe find a pick there. If nothing else, you'll get Baronic's ult down, which is important considering how important that's been to the Solar Scarabs and they're fighting around the mid lane.
Definitely like the aggression from Cyclone Spin. I mean, using that rotation pretty cleanly. But, I mean, this pace, I think the Scarabs are perfectly fine with.
Sure.
Because they have these double hunters. They have the capability in the late game.
Jumping on the purple buff is Lair Scream. Where did all of this damage come from? He's probably wondering the same thing. Walks back into the purple buff pit. Lair's no good on the fadeaway. Paul's going to rotate in from the mid lane. Watch out for this Tiamat. The Tiamat jumping in, going big around the purple. But somehow the Solar Scarabs limping away from the fight. Scream is still alive. Baronic turns around to kill, in fact. Layers doesn't end up getting it. It requires a rotation all the way out of solo lane from Benji to even up the kills.
How do the Scarabs end up making that a one-for-one trade? I mean, Scream got nearly one-tapped by the damage from the Titans, and then he goes up back towards their base. I thought he might be able to just get his back off, but it seemed like Aurora finally turned around to do it. But by Aurora turning around to end up trying to kill him, then it was an easy turnaround on the Layers.
Big damage from inbound onto both Cyclone Spin and Aurora. Stewart does not have his ultimate. Cyclone Spin with fully stacked Devos plus Wind Demon will sustain up plenty. And so, maybe feels like a bit of a dropped ball from the Tartarus Titans, because look at the gold lead now. Started to build up for the Scarab. Cyclone Spin goes back in. You got 2 low health targets. Why not? You get 1 crit. But you don't hit the last couple autos. They're able to steal away the purple buff and just make life difficult for Stewart and inbound, who have to head on back at red HP.
Really close play there by Cyclone. Was hoping that just the ultimate and the 2 damage would be enough, because inbound had really good body blocks there to make sure that Stewart wasn't going to die to the Eagle Eye shots, but Cyclone nearly was still able to find both of those kills, both inbound and Stewart limping away at the very end. And Cyclone has been awfully aggressive so far this game. Mounted archery in the vast majority of the time, which is my preferred way to see the Hachimon played. So much more exciting to see him going for broke and using those EI jutsus aggressively, and he's been able to do so because he's got the damage components ready to go. I mean, same build for Stewart and Cyclone so far, except that Stewart went for that Gilded Arrow instead, and that might be the difference as to why he's actually able to finish that Executioner, whereas Cyclone's still sitting on balance away.
And top player damage in the game for Cyclone Spin would definitely lend its hand to that fact. Another big chunk of damage from Baronic, though, onto Paul. This Charybdis has slowly started to build her way up into a point of pressure where Paul, just when the abilities are on cooldown from Baronic, is able to turn some stuff around, but hasn't necessarily felt comfortable for this Tiamat just yet. Paul hits a decent power spike here, though, Aggro. You get Chronos Pendant, Breastplate of Valor, a little extra defense. Makes sense, right? If you're going up against a Baka,
Classic
Charybdis, Heimdall, and then immediately into Soul Reaver to kind of smooth out that curve.
Paul being convinced to buy Breastplate is like me being convinced to stop and get fast food on the way home. Like, the slightest sign, and I'm in, you know?
Like the sign of the restaurant.
Right, like if I'm driving home, I'm like, yeah, I'm kind of hungry. I probably shouldn't get some fast food, but is that drive-through line empty? Well, I mean, I can't pass that up. Paul's like, I'm playing against 200. Well, I can't pass up a Breastplate of Valor opportunity. He loves it, and it is very good in this game for sure. Now he's full CDR on the Tiamat, and even though he's got less damage because of this Breastplate of Valor, it ends up being okay because Tiamat's one of those characters that just does a lot of her damage through item procs, because she just has so many abilities that can proc Soul Reaver that just having those abilities up more often with 40% CDR is kind of the same as having more damage.
You get to see Paul flex those muscles a bit around this Primal Fury that the Titans have started up. Remember, the Scarabs got the Gold Fury totally for free under the noses of the Tartarus Titans. The Titans have something else in mind here around the Primal on left. Both solo laners rotate on in here. We haven't seen SOT in a team fight phase just yet. Benji got his second kill, remember, rotating around behind Scream on the miraculous escape that was not to be. And it looks like just enough pressure from the Solar Scarabs around this Primal Fury is going to make the Tartarus Titans think twice. You can get a little chunk damage here if you're Paul onto Scream. Send them back to the left side. Don't think that's enough just yet, though, for the Tartarus Titans to re-pull this. Solar Scarabs will be wary of something happening on the left.
Both junglers heading over to the right-hand side as well, so going to be harder to take a 4-on-4 potentially for both of these teams. But Layer seems to be moving over a little bit more quickly. Scream's got to stay over on that right-hand side a little bit longer. He's a little bit behind in the item build in comparison to Layers right now, so maybe trying to focus a little bit more on that farm.
The Oracles are giving me a little stress there. It took the Titans an extra auto attack or two to clean those up. Scream's got eyes for something else. It's the Pyromancer here. Layers was close by, not close enough by to steal away the Pyro. But that's a good pull from the Scarabs because look, there's no viable answer for the Titans around this Primal Fury. Sometimes you see those traded out. That's not going to be this time. And so the Solar Scarabs aggro have built up a 2.2k gold lead despite being 2 kills down in this game. And this is the pace with this style of composition that the Solar Scarabs have set consistently. And Baronic is getting that power spike point. Scream has got himself a nice item spike here. Stewart's in a good spot. And so the Solar Scarabs playing the game the way that they want to. The Titans can limit some of that gold lead by securing a Primal Fury here. Cyclone Spin doing some decent damage numbers to it, but it's a soft reset before the fight.
And this is an important fight because no Spectral armor quite yet for the Titans. Benji's working towards it, and that is going to be huge because you've got 2 Wind Demon Hunters on the other side. They're going to do significant damage still with those crits.
Good Rivers Rebuke. That keeps SOT right where he is. Pillars of Agony pulls in 3. Aurora and Benji locked where they stand, but Benji will kill SOT where he stands. Inbound, dashes through, dashes out. A rare defensive mounted archery from Cyclone Spin gets him out of the back of the fight, but Scream has turned around the damage. Benji's been left alone here as well. A bit of a split fight, but he has done so much. Half HP on 3 members of the Scarabs as Paul re-engages. Cyclone Spin finishes 2 of them. Scream will turn it around for a double of his own, and the Tartarus Titans balancing on a knife edge.
Cyclone going to be able to take down Scream here. No, it's Paul that's going to claim it, and it's a 3 for 4 in favor of the Titans. And the big play that happens right there is actually a missed ability. It was that ultimate from Stewart going wide on Benji, because instead of just outright killing Benji with that ultimate, Benji's beads were down. Instead, Benji gets to throw up that barrier formation, and everyone from the Scarabs is like, guys, all our damage is auto attacks, and we can't do that. So what do? And it takes them so long. They get him eventually, but it takes them way too long. It allows Paul to jump in and clean up that fight really easily. That ult has to land from Stewart, because that fight was going pretty well for the Scarabs. SOT bought a ton of time, did damage, 8 cooldowns. He did his Hades thing. Like, Hades isn't doing much more than that, but that's enough to win a fight from a solo laner. Scream goes in, kills Layers in the 1v1 afterwards. That was big. Everything's going pretty well for the Scarabs. It was just that missed ultimate from Stewart. Maybe it's not a winning fight, even if he hits it, but I don't think they lose it that hard if that ultimate lands.
And that gold lead brought right back to even. That's exactly what the Tartarus Titans needed to weather the storm here in game number 1. The XP, now the massive difference in this game, 2.3 thousand. And the player damage charts tell a great story there, Aggro, where Benji's controlling a lot of the space on the back line of the Solar Scarabs there. And Cyclone and Paul have started to heat up in this game, which is, of course, a worrying trend. Once Paul, on this carry style of a pick that the team at is, starts to feel himself a little bit, you have to have answers if you're the Solar Scarabs. Follows up a Soul Reaver with an Ethereal Staff, so you're adding some tankiness, but also a little extra damage in that kit as well, and this Tiamat's going to be difficult to deal with.
Look at that, a Deathbringer done for Cyclone Spin, and Stewart immediately realizes he doesn't want the smoke of a 1v1 auto trade because he's got chin size. Good for killing tanks, not so good for killing the Hachi who's throwing crits at you like he is. So, and I think it's a really intelligent Deathbringer purchase actually, because Solar Troll probably doesn't want to be buying Spectral in his 5th slot. He's also going to be prioritizing finishing off his Bumba's Hammer, because that's been the build for Sot. So he's not going to be building Spectral anytime soon. So there's going to be a lot of value coming out of that Deathbringer.
Voidstone, more recently for SOT. That'll be enough to keep him out of serious threat from Benji and Layers for the time being. Fire Giant is up. Now, this is something that Des talked about, which is early objectives. This is a bit of a split fight here. I'm wondering if Scream is going to find his way in behind Aurora and Paul. He sure has, but Paul jumps out, just uses the beads, leaps away, and Baronic has taken a whole lot of damage. Into the earth he goes, out he sprouts beneath his own tier 1 tower. But that was a quick turnaround from the Tartarus Titans. An attempted jump in from Scream, that's not to be. Quick reactions from Paul to get out of that fight.
Yeah, not bad though for the Scarabs. I mean, Scream has really been the initiator for them, because Bobby doesn't have Blink. Solar Troll doesn't necessarily want to be the first one in on Hades. It's kind of a weird dichotomy on that character where you kind of want to wait for some escapes to be used. So you don't end up getting an easy initiation necessarily from the rest of the Scarabs. So Scream kind of takes it upon himself and gets beads, from Paul. You know, that's fine. You get the blink away from layers as well, so you trade blink for blink. And again, all the CDR from this build for Scream, it might look a little wonky, but it has allowed him to free fire that regurgitate, and he's gotten pretty good value out of it the vast majority of the time.
And it's about to be back here, and it is back as I finish that statement, so why not? Let it fly, see what happens there in the mid lane. And that's where the value is, where there's now a minute and a half left on Paul's beads, and Scream walking back onto the map with his ultimate back and ready to go. What I was kind of hinting at prior to some of the fighting there in the mid is what the Des talked about around these objectives, especially over on right, where the Tartarus Titans aggro, you feel like have to be a little extra wary about leaving an FG or a Pyromancer or a Fury for that matter unvisioned for an extended amount of time. You're at a point now where Scream on the Bakasura, Baronic is late enough in the build, Stewart is late enough in the build, that these objectives are going to absolutely melt if the Solar Scarabs are left alone and given enough freedom to quickly whittle one down.
And they've built pretty well for it as well. I mean, a Wind Demon now for Scream, so that's going to up his objective DPS. An Executioner for Baronic, that's going to up everybody's DPS because that's going to apply for everyone. I think that overall the Scarabs have that burn capability like you were just mentioning, but the Titans have much easier initiation. They've got Blink Nike, and that's just much easier to get in there and buy time. We already saw it once, and you got to be able to use it.
Uh-oh, Benji jumped on here. That's a good Sentinel of Zeus. Apply some slows across Scream and Stewart. Scream used his ult, but remember we've had this conversation. He's going to get it back up here shortly. And so Benji, maybe the higher committal ultimate used in that exchange on the right side. So a nice trade out there from the Solar Scarabs. Aurora steals away the Pyromancer. It's a small moment, but that doesn't feel great for the Solar Scarab. Cyclone Spin sends some autos SOT's way, and those crits, they hit, and they hit hard. Benji back in. You wish you had a Sentinel of Zeus here. Unfortunately, you don't have one. It's a full disengage from the Scarabs with the Titans hunting for blood.
Benji doesn't need the Sentinel of Zeus because he's just got that space created, man. Too much tankiness on this Nike, and Aurora doing great damage on the way out. Inbound continuing to get poked. This is going to be a pull from the Titans.
That's right. Look, inbound's way too low. Baronic has lost a little bit of HP as well. SOT is the one who's got to make something happen. Blinks into the River's Rebuke. Dashes back into the FG pit layers. Finding the damage. The Pillars of Agony come out. That'll delay this fight out a little bit further, but SOT has not done enough. Cyclone Spin has done more than enough. The Titans get the FG for themselves. Cyclone Spin gets a double for himself, and he is 4-0-3. Paul finds one on the left. Layers gets another on the right, and the Solar Scarabs are routed.
The Tartarus Titans just get to go wherever they please, whenever they please. And this Hades build has been so effective for Solar Troll, but I really feel like the Titans took a look at it and said, I know how we can beat it. We just go Deathbringer Hunter because he can't build Spectral in time. And that's all that happened. Cyclone just got to slam him. All the prots in the world don't matter if you aren't reducing those crit damage numbers.
In one fell swoop, this game is over. Scream will have one more death added to the column. A forgettable game one for the jungler of the Solar Scarabs in what has otherwise been a great run for the Solar Scarabs team. Now, this is not a Scarabs team that is immune to having to bounce back in sets like this.
Nope.
But if you're establishing a trend here, it's that the Tartarus Titans figured this is the style of play the Scarabs would come in with, and they had an answer for it.
Exactly, and now it's up to the Scarabs to show us that they have something else in the tank, number one, and number two, that they can adjust their game plan while knocking the Titans off of their game plan, and no team has really proven to me that they can do that to the Titans recently.
Wild that Paul takes, 5 bans, gets a Tiamat that ends up doing near 20,000 damage in a 25-minute game.
Oh no, Tiamat.
Too many strong players
Darn,
on the Tartarus
I gotta play
Titans right
Tiamat
now.
again. Oh, I guess Tiamat looks good here.
That's his birthday wish, is taking 5 bans and still getting Tiamat, I guess. Looks good for Paul and the Titans in Game 1. Scarabs need to bounce back. Can they do it in Game 2? Stick around to find out.
I win? What did it win?
You win the respect.
You're telling me an alien wore this?
Perfect. Okay.
Okay, that was a good cut.
Messaging him to mute.
The best graphics you really need, Ultra, of course, and I can probably watch a stream on the side.
Content's gonna look good.
Pretty good, pretty good.
I could probably use some heartbreak to get moving. Tired of the way you let me down. You fill me up with broken promises, 'cause you never keep them. I'm so sick of the way you let me down. So all my time, oh, don't try. I don't like all the things you do, mess with my head. Just pick me up, let me down like you don't care. This is for
You can go to shop.smite Pro League for any of the cool SPL merch that we have available to all of you at home. We got all kinds of things out there. We got the jerseys for the teams. We've got t-shirts. We've got hoodies. It's starting to get a little bit cooler, so make sure you pick yourself up a hoodie. We've got the hooded blanket. We've got a onesie. All kinds of things getting ready for the winter season. Thanks to our friends over at Inside Apparel for providing the merchandise here in the Smite Pro League. And again, shop.smiteproleague.com to get any of your SPL merch, whether it be for a team or just in general. And as we do have the nice Smite Pro League hoodies and t-shirts out there. Beanies too. I mean, yeah, I already said it's starting to get cooler. Make sure you stay warm and wrap yourself up in some SPL merch. Game number 1, Tartarus Titans. A little bit of a slow start out here. A little bit of fight back out of the Scarabs. But I think Aggro is right to highlight just in that one fight around that Gold Fury is the Solar Scarabs just had trouble getting around Benji specifically. He threw up, what, one barrier, and they really couldn't do much in a team fight.
No, it was so hard. A triple auto attack composition, probably going to get slammed by Nike just by merit of Nike existing shield wall. Is that strong of ability? But you got to highlight really what gets the win here for the Tartarus Titans. It's the versatility rearing its head yet again. The Solar Scarabs start off this best of 5 by throwing out 5 targeted bans, and still the Tartarus Titans were able to succeed. But that doesn't mean that the Solar Scarabs weren't trying to execute on a plan. You could see it in just about every single engagement. When the Solar Scarabs were starting a fight on their own footing, they had a clear target. It was always Layers. Layers was getting chased out around Blue Bus or around Purples every single time. If Bat Out of Hell was down, 4 members of the Solar Scarabs were trying their best to chase out this jungler, and it just doesn't work. Maybe because Benji's got one of the best space denial tools in the game, maybe because Yamoja's healing is incredibly high, maybe because Yamoja also has walls. But after that, after the Solar Scarabs were either successful in killing Layers, and a couple of times they probably lose the engagement because they dragged themselves so far out of position trying to chase Bat Out of Hell, or they lose out on the initial because Bat Out of Hell is just that good of an escape tool.
And then even after they get past the front line of the Tartarus Titans, the Solar Scarabs then have to deal with the carries right at the back end there. Paul and Cyclone go undying this game, 3-0 and 9 for the mid laner, 4-0 and 5 for the Hunter here in game number 1. 21,000 damage put up by Cyclone. Those crits starting to come in big here. And that's kind of been a problem for a lot of teams going up against the Titans is, sure, you finally broke through the front line, but these backliners, man, it feels like they have so much space created towards them that when you finally do manage to claw your way back there, they just put you right back down in the dirt.
21,000 damage from Cyclone Spin. Yeah, okay. You thought you'd address the issue in layers. You gave space to one of the best to have ever done it. The Tartarus Titans, man, these guys are just so hard to lock down. It just feels like you've done a good job, Solar Scarabs, of banning out some of the more annoying parts of the composition from the Titans, but this is just a team that has got many, many faces, and all of them are pretty good.
And one of the things that we see time and time again going against this Titans team is teams are trying to determine what is the problem on this team that we need to ban away? What is the problem that we have to address? Game number 1 here, the Scarabs thought it was Paul. We need to ban out Paul, make sure to put him far back in the God pool. But as we saw, even after 5 bans came through to this mid laner, he's still able to pick up Tiamat. Cyclone goes unaddressed in the entirety of the picks and bans as he picks up Hachiman, who's kind of risen up here. Game number 2, what adjustments do you want to see out of Scarabs here in picks and bans?
Maybe if you're not able to completely ban out Paul, and you're not, by the way.
No,
it's just
it's not
impossible.
happening.
He's played Smite for so long, and he's played just about every mage at the top level. If you're not able to completely ban him out, instead of banning out a player, I want to see the Solar Scarabs ban out a play style. If you're able to just remove Morrigan, all of a sudden you don't have to worry about Morrigan Cthulhu together, and then you don't have to dedicate all 5 of your actual bans to one player, and that opens you up to removing layers from the Camazotz, so you can make him go a little bit deeper into his own god pool. Then you have to worry about the Erlang Shen. Well, that's something layers that can perform on very well as well. Maybe you want to try and address Cyclone Spin, put him on a god that's a little bit less safe. That's one avenue back in, and the Solar Scarabs could have Scream try and camp out the duo lane. But seems like that's not going to be the case here today. Second verse, same as the first.
It's going to be Kali, Sylvanas, Oleron, and on the opposite side, the exact same 3 we saw last game in the Hell, Morrigan, and Aphrodite. No real differences made here. Umoja first pick. Terra on the opposite side for the Solar Scarabs, giving that one over to inbound. We'll see if they go with the Charybdis. That was their second pick in game number 1. And it's going to be the second pick in game number 2 here. So no adjustments so far made by either of these teams just yet. Titans haven't needed to because their comp worked out so well for them in game 1. The only change up here is they get the Camazotz second pick instead of first.
Yeah, look, I'm waiting for some sort of pivot, maybe one adaptation for me to latch on to, because I think we did a pretty good job breaking down what both of these drafts bring in the initial desk, and so far, seems like it's still ringing true. Quick pick phase here, as both teams have got the strategy down. They know exactly what they're looking for. So, quick breakdown. Umoja, Camazotz, Nike on the left-hand side of your screen for the Tartarus Titans. Solar Scarabs have picked up Terra, Charybdis, and Hades. All incredibly strong picks individually. But now, the Solar Scarabs have got a good look at what the Tartarus Titans were able to do to disrupt their draft last time around. And I think Aggro, and you yourself included, highlight it very well. It's this Nike shield wall that makes it so hard to perform with all these auto attackers. So I'm expecting some adaptations in the second phase. I would be hard-pressed to come up with a reason for the Solar Scarabs to go back towards something like the Bakasura. Maybe we see a slightly more ability-focused jungler, or maybe we see the first adaptation in the bans, Hachiman from the Scarabs.
Yeah, a rocket fire first half of the picks and bans, and then we slow down just a little bit here as teams really start to think about what they want to do. Last time it was Chang'e Soul for the Solar Scarabs. That first adjustment, as you mentioned, Hachiman, making sure to take that one away from Cyclone. And instead of trying to fully address Paul, now they're throwing a little bit of respect over towards Cyclone, banning not just the Hachiman, but the Izanami. Tartarus Titans, they had Daji Susano as their bans last time around, and they'll repeat those here in the second phase. Now the question is, do the Solar Scarabs make that same adjustment? Do they go with grabbing something here just for their Hunter? They will in the Heimdall. But now it's all going to come down to what does Scream go for his final pick, as the Titans can essentially kind of just go for the same comp they had, well, I guess sans the Hachiman.
Yeah, they have to go a little bit more safe. There still are safe hunters available if that's what the Titans want. Out of the long lane, Jing Wei comes to mind as something that could work out, or maybe even what you're seeing now, the Chernobog being hovered by the Titans. It's a pick that Cyclone Spin has seen a lot of success on. It brings some of that safety, has the ability to just hover inside of a wall if you're worried about getting full dove on, or just hovering in the air if you're worried on that same note. The Tartarus Titans get, I would say, essentially the exact same draft. Everything's going to operate just about the exact same way, as do the Solar Scarabs, but this is the pick right here, 10th pick in the lobby, that I'm expecting a wild shift up. The jungler can completely change how you look at an entirety of a map. I don't want to see Bakasura again. That's the full stop statement. He can go just about anywhere. Maybe a CC core for your team could go a long way. Hun bots comes to mind as something that synergizes really well with the Terra and the Hades. Maybe that could be an option going forward. If you're worried about your ability to shut down individual targets, you want to go for like a high nuke style jungler, just anything that has good damage output quickly to help finish off some of these kills, because very often the Tartarus Titans found themselves limping away from engagements in game 1. Could try and shore that up here. Loki comes to mind in that style of play. Maybe even a Mercury. Gilgamesh, not exactly, but definitely a strong front line to create space for some of your hunters. I like it. I like it way more than I like Bakasura. I'll say that. Synergizes well with Terra, just like Hunbots would have. The dot damage going to proc Earth and Fury just about every single time. You've got good early game, decent CC lockdown. Yeah, this is better. That's way better.
Yeah. Only thing that's changed, except for, the bans out of the Solar Scarabs here in that second half, has just been these last two gods picked up. Cyclone Spin now going over to the Chernobog, and then a Gilgamesh to round out the draft for the Solar Scarabs. Essentially, everything else, though, is the exact same thing here. Do you think this Gilgamesh is maybe more of something to try and answer up against this Nike? The barrier gave them so many problems last time, to where this Bakasura and this Double Hunter couldn't get in there. You think Gilgamesh is maybe a bit of an answer to try and deal with that barrier?
It's not so much that he's trying to address Nike particularly. I think the Solar Scarabs strategy in the team fight is to play around the Nike. I think very often if the Solar Scarabs do find themselves winning fights, Nike's likely going to be the last one standing for the Tartarus Titans, because really there's no point trying to fight her. Maybe you can utilize the silence from Hades to stop shield wall and facilitate your team. That's one way, but I don't think it's very often that we're going to see the Solar Scarabs just kind of fully committing onto the solo laner of the Titans.
How do you kind of feel about the Chernobog rounding out in this draft? I mean, we haven't really seen him a whole lot. He kind of just sneaks his way into a draft every so often. How do you kind of feel about this Hunter right now in the current meta?
He's got some of the best scaling in the game for Hunters. His stim in the late game is incredibly strong. The global presence kind of brings some nuance to these late game Fire Giant dances. Cyclone Spin is a player that will go split push if he thinks he needs to, and he'll do it very well. I don't like anybody's odds in a 1v1 up against Cyclone Spin from the Solar Scarabs. Maybe if you send over Charybdis, you could just kind of like slow him down and play safe, but Chernobog likely wins that one unless he's getting slammed by the Maul. The global presence going to go a long way here as well. I'm expecting a similar strategy from both of these teams. Obviously, the Tartarus Titans going to try and play the exact same way that we saw in Game 1. I think the Solar Scarabs are similarly going to continually try and chase out this Camazotz throughout the team fight. This time around, they've got slightly better chase down potential. The lockdown has been increased thanks to Gilgamesh Ultimate. So, if it's a leap away or a bat out of hell away from Camazotz, drop a tornado on him. Or like a sandstorm, I don't know. Drop the Winds of Shamash on him and chase him out.
One of the things that we always talk a lot about is the team fight between two teams, but team fighting is one half of it, at least outside in the jungle up against these bosses. When you get to these kind of tower defenses, these Phoenix defenses, how does that kind of look for both of these squads?
Well, it's hard to argue against any offense or defense that has a Terra on your side, but Terra is also kind of one note in that once Earth and Fury has been used, you've lost a lot of your capacity to defend or attack inside of the structures. So the Solar Scarabs seem to me they've got a spearhead style of both defense and offense. They're going to try and win the initial engagement, whereas the Tartarus Titans, thanks to some of the self-sustain in their draft as well as the sustain from Yamoja, they could take longer fights.
Tartarus Titans and Solar Scarabs, game number 2. Can the Scarabs bring it back and tie up the set? Let's jump right into the game and find out.
Well, it's a Solar Scarabs after game 1 who needed to change some stuff up. And aggro, one big piece of the puzzle in game 1 was the Bakasura. And there was a changed piece of the puzzle. It's Scream on the Gilgamesh here in game 2. Instead of that Bakasura pick, everything else is the same. Is that enough of a change to give you confidence against a Titans team that is effectively the same?
Not really. Look, the Hachiman was really good.
Yeah.
And the Bakasura was really not great. So you change out those things, and theoretically, that should make a pretty big difference. But I think that, Chernobog for Hachiman, not the biggest switch up in that Hunter role. You still get a lot of safety. You still have the capability to get to fights pretty quickly in comparison to other Hunters. It's something that Cyclone has played a lot of in his career, so I like that pick for Cyclone Spin. The Gilgamesh for Scream, it's a pick that he's played a lot of and has looked pretty good on, but it does bring more AoE damage to the team fight, which is something that maybe they were lacking a little bit last time around. So and a little bit more CC as well. So they get that. I just think Baka's like not that good
Right.
of a smite god. Like I look at what Baka can do in comparison to most other characters, Gilgamesh included, and I'm not really getting super stoked about the fact that my ultimate just makes me throw up my pretty little lunch. Like that's all I'm really doing most of the time. That's not enough for me.
Yeah, unlucky for you and Bakasura for what happens there in game number 1. Tartarus Titans might feel like they're on easy street here moving into game 2. I guess the ultimate decision then is if the Solar Scarabs feel, outside of the Bakasura swap, which, is notable. If you're feeling like what happened in game 1 was more of a personal misplay rather than a compositional mismatch, you stick with something very similar and say, well, we can just play it a little bit better here this time. But, we talked about something with like SOT where Hades doesn't love building Spectral, and I assume Cyclone Spin is going to want to build into a similar build path here in this game. And so that's something that SOT has got to now consider moving forward.
Yeah, I think he's got to make an adjustment. They've already made some type of adjustment because it's no Sunder, double Sunder this time. They went from 2 Sunders to 0, and they go Blink and Shell.
Who needs them?
I think they do. I think they still do need them, but maybe they feel like it wasn't enough. Oh, I see. Solar Patrol changed his skin. That was the problem.
And that is important. That is an important factor.
I agree.
Scream an important factor to this Scarabs team. Starting to put some pressure on left, just forcing Cyclone Spin and Aurora back. Good chip damage from Stewart. But Cyclone Spin able to walk forward actually returns a decent bit of damage onto Scream. Layers is making his way left as well. Paul on his red buff. Cyclone Spin survives the initial dash in. Is there going to be enough time bought for Layers to get over here? The Scarabs have to realize this has been going on for a minute.
Yeah.
And Layers is going to be over here at some point. And Layers is in. It's Shell, Hughes, Stewart into the Bifrost, and down he goes. First blood to the Tartarus Titans inbound now with a 3 versus 1. Nice 3-man route, and the double dash should be enough, but not enough to keep Stewart alive. First blood to the Titans.
But you lose both relics over here in the dual lane, and you're right. I mean, that alarm bell has to be going off in your head if you're the Scarabs, that, hey, we've been on tower line for a long time now, and whether Scream didn't communicate that he was backing or they didn't listen, but something went wrong there. I think it was right for Scream to back. I think they were a little bit too weak to be invading purple even with him there, so I liked their decision to back it up.
Is Benji going to make something happen here on right? Solo or Troll? Not yet. Level 5, Benji is. Sentinel of Zeus might be used immediately upon leveling up. Instead, it's a repelled attempt by SOT. Benji does take some damage, but that's about it over here on the right. Benji goes for a bit of a different start here, Aggro. Remember, it was Brawler's Beat Stick immediately completed for Benji. It looks like he's got something else in mind to start off the game.
I mean, he doesn't need that offense, I guess, if he thinks he's going to get ganked a little bit more by the Gilgamesh than he would be by the Bakasura. So I don't mind that adjustment from Benji. I think that, it was effective last game, but it still probably could have gotten punished a little bit more. So realizes that maybe he should have gotten a little bit safer. I think the defense first is the right option.
Cyclone Spin not able to go back to base just yet. You imagine he is going to get a decent little item spike here. For the moment, Stewart has priority in this lane just because of Cyclone Spin's health bar and lack of the tier 2 item in the Devourer's tree. So if you're able to slow down Cyclone Spin's back, you're maybe able to get some pressure here in this lane. Layers lurking on left yet again, though. He has Bat Out of Hell this time. Can you make life difficult for Inbound and Stewart? Are you going to make life difficult for yourself? In Layers walks, inbound low, jump in. Got to be enough damage with Bat Out of Hell here. 1 swoop, 2 swoop, 3 is good. Stewart, now he's low beneath his tower. You thought you had the presence in lane, anything but. The Tartarus Titans swoop on in and grab 2 more.
And look at this left side of the map, Dave. Do you see a red ward? Because I don't.
I sure don't.
There's not a single one on that left-hand side. And they weren't pushed up that time. The Scarabs weren't disrespecting the rotation necessarily, but just taking too much poke damage in the lane. And then it's just easy pickings for Layers when you don't have any wards on that side of the map whatsoever. Just not going to work out for you in that regard.
And this is horrific, not to be hyperbolic, but when Layers gets off to starts like this, it is very rare that he slows down throughout the rest of the game. Pillars of Agony by SOT, that'll slow down Benji. Drop kick, no good. Yeah, slow down. Never heard of that. Layers over here on the right side. SOT is going to have to dash away. If there's Bat Out of Hell, you better believe Layers is going in for it.
Oh, yeah.
3/4 of the way to back. Paul probably 3/4 of the way of completing his back. Ulted by Inbound here in the mid lane. Couple tower shots there. But that's enough for Inbound to get a return kill. Finally, some breathing room from the Scarabs. Aurora has the opportunity to flip it right on around if Layers was here. Yet again, I think maybe there's a dive from Layers. But killing out for Inbound here in mid.
Yeah, I think that was really credit to Baronic to getting Paul that low in the grounded stance for Paul, which means his jump was down. He didn't have beads anymore, and it's an easy cleanup kill from Inbound on that rotation in. So good work there by Baronic to get him low in the first place, use that ultimate in order to do so. And not a solo kill, but pretty darn close to it. This early game Charybdis in lane continues to just catch people off guard. Baronic has been impressive on it.
It's one of those classic, I do like 80% of the dude's damage.
Wow, look
similar
at that.
to this, right? That is Crusher, and then one tier 1 item after that Baronic is able to put into Paul there. That's like a classic case of I've done like 90% of the dude's health over the course of this laning phase.
Yeah.
But then he's backed away, we've taken a deep breath, the combat timer is worn out, and then somebody else comes in and gets the kill, and I don't get an assist for it. That's probably how that feels for Baronic here in mid. Left empty-handed after the first. Yeah, he didn't get anything for it. Pain, feels bad. Maybe a chance, though, to grab an assist onto Aurora. Maybe Layers, who's taken low by SOT here. Early pressure from the Hades onto the Camazotz, who will leap on away. I think will survive for the time being. So we've already seen a little bit more pressure, at least poking and prodding on right, than we really did see in game number 1. I wonder, though, Aggro, how stuff starts to look on the left side of the map for Stuart. There are some red wards dropped on the Tartarus Titan side of the jungle here. It's already an 0-2 Heimdall. Have to imagine the door is open for a little bit more pressure here if the Tartarus Titans won.
Yeah, all 3 kills on the dual lane here for the Scarabs, so you know that you're not going to be able to fight a whole lot on that side of the map, but they aren't super far behind. I mean, Stuart's down 20 or so stacks, kind of as expected, and who knows exactly how much itemization he has, but Cyclone coming in probably just to get back into the fight after he based.
Bifrost awaits Stuart right around the corner. Appreciate the patience, everyone, as we deal with some of these issues here in game 2. As Stuart hopefully making his way out of this one, Aggro. Aurora starting to close that gap. Layers is close by as well. Would be a 3 versus 3 on the left side of the map here. Purple buff gets dropped. Cyclone's been able to pick it up. No good on Inbound on the stun. Looks like clean in and out, but River's Rebuke is up. That separates Baronic from this fight. Inbound takes a lot of damage here, uses one of his dashes, but holding off on the trigger pull are the Tartarus Titans. Don't want to overextend.
Yeah, Aurora always looking for those River's Rebuke traps and finds one on Inbound there, but I like the decision from the Titans not overcommit. That is a Lotus Crown Terra that has Shell up and available, that has ult ready to go, and Inbound may have died if they would have jumped on him, but can't say for certain. And if you all in commit onto him and he survives, then it's really bad for you because it's an easy turn for the Scarabs. So I think that's a good decision by the Tartarus Titans. Yeah, you lose Aurora's ultimate, but you know it's better to be taking those chances and deciding to call them off than not take the chance at all.
So it's Scream now on this Gilgamesh, who's trying to keep pace with the Tartarus Titans. Layers specifically, 201. Pace in the XP department has not been an issue. But you can tell the mindset of Scream just by the damage charts. He's 900, bottom in the game at the time. For the time being, Layers 2200, a little bit further up. So the Camazotz has gotten more involved. Scream here on right, get those damage numbers up and building. SOT, Pillars of Agony, delays out this fight, bat out of hell. They're just trying to burst damage down as much as they can, and the Tartarus Titans able to do so. That's a clean solo kill over here on the right side of the map onto SOT.
I really like that the Relic Shield pickup here from Benji as well, because that ends up, or Runic Shield rather, but because that ends up being really impactful, that power debuff ending up taking away 40 power from Solo Retrol.
That's a decent amount of power.
That's a decent amount of power. Of course, it also gives you the protections, but Layers was starting to get a little nervous with how that engagement was going. Imagine if he would have had 40 more power for that fight.
Yep. Paul, you can tell that this lane has been annoying for Paul, right? Baronic walks forward, throws out the wave, gets some auto attacks in there. But I think it's credit to Paul that he's been able to stay alive outside of this, and it's Inbound making his way into the mid lane. Ult in from Cyclone Spin. Has Inbound overextended? Have your eyes gotten too big for Paul in the mid lane? Paul says yes on the fadeaway shot, and the Tartarus Titans grab their 5th. Inbound dies for the 2nd time. This left side of the map for the Scarabs has just been feasted on this game. 0-2 for Stewart, 1-2 for Inbound, 4 out of the 5 kills.
I know they're in studio. Did you hear Paul go, can we kill this guy?
Please.
For
Begging.
double dashing in front of me in my red buff? Like, come on, fellas. And eventually the rest of the Titans do end up jumping in, using that Chernobog Global Ultimate. And it's a god that isn't super meta right now. I think he's really underrated. I'm always pretty impressed with what Chernobog's able to do. I'm surprised we don't see more of him. And little moments like that, against other hunters, you get away with that positioning. Not against the Bog.
Baronic gets some good damage on the layers here. How many times have we said that, though, where Baronic gets some good damage? It just hasn't, outside of that one kill from Inbound, been capitalized in on here just yet. That said, the timer still going here for the Solar Scarabs. You're still double hunter. You got a Shoguns for Scream early in his build here. Unable to get the ultimate on a Cyclone Spin. He'll dash away. Winds of Shamash down. Beads used to avoid the slow. Stun out on the other end. Scream taking up the tower. Cyclone Spin. You madman. Turns around the 2v1. And now Aurora is here closing the gap onto Stewart as well. And Stewart just going to take some damage from the tower. Bifrost out. This one's going to hurt a little bit. Oh, there you go. Little poke on the back end. He's fine. Totally fine. That never was going to do enough damage, but fun watching the tower shot follow him in there. And so, well executed, not well executed, I'll leave that up to you, but it's an executed dive nonetheless that at least gets a kill for the Scarabs.
Yeah, you go 1 for 1, but Stewart uses his beads at the back end of that. Cyclone's ultimate is coming back up. Stewart had just used his. It's not a great situation, as you can tell.
Yeah, as you can tell here, aggro. Tartarus Titans with the Solar Scarabs have taken a couple deep breaths or two mid-game, giving themselves a moment to think about exactly what's going on. Here's what you can look at, our beautiful faces, and I appreciate you guys looking at that at least.
Focus on that one, if you please.
No, that one.
No, I'm serious. Actually, Mike, can you just zoom in?
No, I would hate that.
Right, the S, Mike. That's what I'm talking about. Get in there, baby. Yeah! That's what the people came to see.
Immediately back into the game.
That was good timing.
That was perfect timing. Appreciate you guys sticking around with us. Game 2, look, it's not looked pretty for the Scarabs either. This has been happening a whole lot. Inbound jumped on once more. Cyclone Spin with his second kill of the game was 0-0-4 a minute ago. In the last minute or two, Cyclone has started to add a couple of kills to the back pocket of this Chernobog. And the ball has just been rolling for the Tartarus Titans. You're about 3K ahead, a little under it. For the Titans will be 3K plus ahead once this Gold Fury gets locked in. And I would argue, it's a similar looking composition for the Scarabs that's looking a little bit worse at this point in the game. Unable to steal it away, and the Gold Fury goes to the Titans.
Yeah, when you're playing against a group of veterans, showing them the same comp twice, they've seen you play it. They know what you're trying to do. It's not a secret. But there's a difference between watching something happen and then participating in it.
Right.
The difference between watching a pitcher throw a pitch and being actually in the batter's box.
Right, I could definitely hit a 95-mile-per-hour fastball.
Dave, I would bet every gem I'll ever make that you couldn't touch a fastball.
That's a lot of gems.
That's a lot of gems for sure. But whenever you show them the same comp twice in a row, do you think you're going to be able to make more adjustments to what they're doing when they won the last game,
right,
or are they going to be able to keep compounding on what they were doing well? We see the salty run back all the time, and this isn't a one-to-one salty run back, but it's awfully close. And I just really think that it always gives advantage to the team that won the last game,
of course,
that was doing well in the last game.
How could it not?
And I'm personally just not a fan.
I think outside of like a Fire Giant steal that turns around the game, that's a situation where you're like, look, we were winning in every facet.
Sure.
This doesn't go our way and we lose.
But even in those scenarios, right, the team that was getting beat in the early game, can't they go, oh, well, this is why we were getting beat by this comp in the early game. Let's adjust to that.
Right. Right, and usually there's more of an adjustment, I guess.
Right.
I would argue that the more impactful of the two swaps has been Cyclone Spin on this Chernobog. In and out of the wall he goes. Layers jumped on, but he'll immediately flip it around. 3 swoops used. This would have been a 3 versus 2, but Aurora's going to even things up here. 3v3, Scream takes a whole lot of damage. Drop kick onto Layers, who is sustaining up just fine. Stewart dodges the stun on the back end from Aurora, who's rotated in late in this engagement. The body box, delay Inbound's escape a little bit, and it looks like we'll secure his life, but Aurora tanking up the tower, and he is pledging Chernobog into the back line. He goes. Cyclone onto a killing spree. Double kill for the Chernobog. SOT joins the fight. but it looks like he's just
Munch!
Another kill by Baronic over from the mid lane, uses the ult, and that gets back one.
So Baronic's got to go big here, going up against Cyclone Spin. The CC is
Aegis.
solid, and Cyclone will fall. Baronic able to hit him down with the splinter shot.
And finally, something pays off here for the Solar Scarabs. A double kill for Baronic out of mid, and that's got to be a weight off Baronic's shoulders. He has been doing a lot of damage all game long, and finally able to find some value here. And he will take a momentary break along with the rest of the game once more here in game 2. But finally, Aggro, we start to see some of the power of this Charybdis on the rotation through. Maybe an overextension from the Titans, but a good answer if nothing else from the
Yeah,
Scarabs.
I mean, look, that was a 5-man rotation. That was a 5v3 that the Titans basically went even on or something like that. So all that while, you saw Paul and Benji pushing down mid, getting that tier 1, getting close to getting the tier 2. Feel like whenever it comes to these true 5-on-5s, the Scarabs are still going to struggle. But look, whenever you're behind and you've got to make a play happen, rotating 5 people over to a little skirmish is the right way to do it. So it's definitely the right direction for them in trying to claw their way back into this game. Baronic getting a double is huge. He's obviously been great during this laning phase, but he needs to be able to transition out towards the late. Getting a double right now will really help there.
And we've mentioned that the Gilgamesh, we've I think talked plenty about the change to the Scarabs composition here. The sole change to the Titans composition has been this Chernobog. And I'd argue that's been the more impactful of the two swaps. That feels like the pick that's thrown more of a curveball at the opposing team as far as unchanged compositions. The ultimate in from Cyclone Spin was used early to the tune of a few assists.
Yep.
Now even being used in short-range scenarios to grab some kills.
Look, I mean, Cyclone was looking really good on the Hachiman. You ban Hachi Izanami. He goes to Chernobog. He dominates you. You're worried about Paul. You're triple banning or quadruple banning or quintuple banning his god pool. And then he goes to Tiamat and he just dominates you. Feel like the way the Titans play right now, Cyclone and Paul are too adaptable for what they're going to do.
Yeah.
There are certain picks I agree that you have to take away. I think you kind of have to ban Morrigan against this team.
Yep.
You have to be really worried about Hell. But overall, I'd be a little bit more concerned about what this front line is doing because Benji and Aurora and Layers are still doing plenty of heavy lifting.
Well, I'm excited to see how Game 2 ends up rolling out. Unfortunately for you, chat, you can't look at our faces any longer. We're going to take a break.
That one.
I'm going to continue to look at Aggros. We'll see you back in a second.
This one.
What's your story? What's your sign? It's like we're twin flames in a different life. Deep connection lights a spark. It's like you know me in the depths of my heart. We're dreamers. Don't care what other people say. We're living like this could be a final day. We're dreamers. Don't care what the others say. We're doing this in our own way. We come alive in the nighttime. Something about how we dance in the moonlight. That look in your eyes, it tells me that you want me and all my loving. We come alive in the nighttime. You and I, we come alive. We come alive. We come alive. What's your weakness? What's your type? Somehow I wanna know all about you. Deep connection lights a spark. You already know me when we dance in the dark. We're dreamers. We're living like this could be a final day. We're dreamers. We're doing this in our own way. We come alive in the nighttime. Something about how we dance in the moonlight. That look in your eyes, it tells me that you want me and all my loving. We come alive in the nighttime. You and I, we come alive. We come alive. We come alive. We come alive. Tell me that you want me. I can see you want me by the look in your eyes. Tell me that you want me. I can see you want me by the look in your eyes. We come alive. We come alive. We come alive in the nighttime. Something about how we dance in the moonlight. That look in your eyes, it tells me that you want me and all my loving. We come alive in the nighttime. You and I, we come alive. We come alive. We come alive. We come alive.
Appreciate the patience, SMITE fans. Back into game number 2 we go. Everything all sorted out, and we will see the thrilling conclusion. The Tartarus Titans versus Solar Scarabs, a game in which the Titans have controlled from early on here, aggro. Been a little pushback to the tune of a kill or two from the Solar Scarabs. But it really feels like that this Chernobog composition centered around Cyclone Spin, layers providing a lot of the damage, the assists, has just been too tough for the Scarabs to deal with.
2-1-7 man for Layers, who has just continued to be dominant, a 2-level lead for him. And when we get into these team fights later on, when we're doing our 5-on-5s, what's the solution to dealing with Benji's Nike? Because I haven't seen it from the Scarabs quite yet. This Nike pick We saw it be the turning factor in the last game, and it's still here. It's still ready to go for the Titans.
Yep.
What's the difference now for dealing with the Umoja walls? How do we get our damage through those Umoja walls as auto attack characters? We still can't. That's still not an option for us. So I don't know. In last game, they were theoretically more set up to deal with the Nike because they had the Summers.
Right. I mean, game one ended on one big team fight. This game has been a little bit more drawn out. Still could end on one big team fight. That is a dive and a well-executed one by the Titans onto Baronic. And the Charybdis as safe as you like. Both actives used. No chance, but now it's Benji around the back.
Scream has to drop the ultimate. Benji CCing him, pushing him back. Layers in, hit the Vampire Bats, but he doesn't need them.
No, he doesn't. He'll get the kill nonetheless. Benji in with the Sentinel of Zeus. 3 members of the Scarabs backpedaling. That's a great Rivers Rebuke. Gonna force Stewart into the Bifrost, but inbound stunned up once more. Aurora is just not missing right now. Paul, the cone of damage, puts inbound in the dirt. SOT. The Pillars of Agony will delay things out once more, but the Titans find a 3 for none and 2 towers in mid.
Look, Charybdis has an obscene amount of safety in her kit. The Whirlpool form, some of the best safety in the game, bar none. And even that won't save the positioning there for Baronic, who just cannot be there. No idea why he walks into mid without a tier 1 tower there, tries to trade in a 2v1. Just never going to work. And now the game is nearly out of hand in favor of the Titans because Aurora's level 14. He's 1 level down from the characters who are trying to kill him. And those who have played a lot of Smite know hitting a Guardian who's only 1 level down from you means you're not going to be doing a whole lot of damage. He was the same level as Scream. Scream just hit level 15 off a speed buff. The front line is just too much right now for the Titans. And so if you're the Scarabs, you have to extend this game another 10 minutes, at least. You have to survive for at least another 10.
I laugh. I mean, the breakneck pace of this game, if it's able to continue, the Titans have eyes on a sub 10-minute win, you'd have to imagine. Pyromancer at least gets secured by the Solar Scarabs. Fire Giant is there. And that's where the Titans were able to end game 1. They group up around the FG, find one big fight, end things. Immediately after that, Cyclone Spin in onto Stewart. But Stewart immediately out of the fight. Was Wind Demon into Deathbringer for Cyclone Spin in game 1. Bit of a different look here, same build, but Shinsai's instead of that Deathbringer still hit some crits. But this time the Health Shred is going to be impactful. Paul, well-timed beats on the drop kick from Scream, but he jumps out. Somehow this Tiamat has stayed alive, and it's turned the tables. Immediately out are the Solar Scarabs. Double stun from Baronic on that ultimate, but into the Whirlpool he goes. Inbound is going to be left on once again. And the sacrificial lamb is sacrificed once more.
Benji in the front line, not concerned. Has beads, has ultimate, has barrier formation, has Hide of the Nemean Lion, just making sure that these auto attacks don't end up actually doing anything to him, and they shouldn't. Even though I don't really love Nemean up against Charybdis because it goes based on your auto, you just get block stacks on autos, and the little machine gun shot from Charybdis is going to strip all those away instantly, but I'm going to be honest, Dave, I don't think it matters much. Benji is not pressed right now.
Yeah, Benji is not super concerned about much of anything. A steal would get you back in the game. If you're the Solar Scarab, Scream does not have Winds of Shamash. You're going to have to get in there and get the hands dirty to steal this one away. And no, we're not going to try that. Scream heads on out. Blue buff is what he's got eyes for. But should he be even had eyes for that? Benji says no. He's going to find the Rend on the backside. Scream jumps on out. Benji jumps on in. Swoop through from layers. SOT dashes out of the Rivers Rebuke, but all the damage has connected onto SOT, onto Scream. One last fight's all the Titans need, and they've at least found a kill onto Sot.
Sot nearly was able to make it work. If he would have been able to devour souls there, it would have done a lot of damage using that passive and exploding everyone right there, but ends up dying anyways, and it just keeps getting worse for the Scarabs.
It's just one by one. It's a conveyor belt of carnage for the Tartarus Titans. Layers is on a rampage. Suddenly the Kamazots has come alive at the back end of this game, and a lot of kills for Cyclone Spin. But Layers wants in on the action as well. Scream is just going to get run down by 2. Paul on a killing spree onto Baronic. Seems like we're sunsetting here in game number 2. The Tartarus Titans come in with a very similar game plan with a unique twist with the Chernobog instead of the Hachiman. And it pays off just the same. Stewart's going to head on back to Fountain. He'll head on into the grave, and the Tartarus Titans send us to game 3.
Extremely Mifflin voice. Sunsetting? What is that? No one's ever heard of that. I'm just kidding. Everyone's obviously heard of that.
Yeah, I'm not going to explain it.
The Titans, they're just doing whatever they please right now on the map. And I think these picks and bans, the Scarabs cannot defend going the same comp 3 times in a row. Something has to change in the composition, number one. And can you please change something about the Titans front line? Because giving them Camazotz, Nike, Yamoja in top 3 both games is just not a winning formula. They have to get the Titans off those picks.
And now I wonder if there's mental flexibility now with Cyclone Spin specifically, because you spend some bans on him in the back end, and he looks just as good anyway, right?
Yep.
You're always playing with the issue with Paul, where you're going to spend 4 or 5 bans on him, even a pick maybe, and he's going to look just as good anyway. Maybe you start to look towards the front line here for the Tartarus Titans who've been running with it.
They probably are looking at all those bans and they're going, who cares?
The Titans saying, who cares?
Yeah, who cares?
They sure don't. They're winning. They're doing a lot of it here, and they're doing it quickly over the Solar Scarabs. 2-0 up are the Tartarus Titans. Quick break. We'll be back for Game 3.
Hey there, SMITE fans, Aggro here. Look, every single year, the SPL just keeps getting better. Season 7 was incredible, and in Season 8, I'm sure our players are going to take their game to the next level. But in order to do that, they're going to need the best gear they can get their hands on. And that's why I'm so excited to announce the title sponsor for Season 8 of the SPL is Alienware. Yeah, that Alienware. Our players are getting the best of the best in computer gaming. These Alienware Aurora Ryzen Edition PC setups are insane. Not only will these be the PCs that the players will compete on once we are in studio, but Alienware is also providing one for each player at their home setup to make sure their practice is as good as possible. Now let's get down to brass tacks. The specs on these Alienware Aurora Ryzen Edition desktops are amazing. An AMD Ryzen 9 16-core processor.
That's a lot of cores.
That's plenty of processing power.
Plenty of cores.
If you want to stream, this is the way to go.
I know a lot about my cores, so. I mean, Pilates, right?
64 gigabytes of DDR4 RAM.
What? Is that true?
That is true. I mean, this thing has 64 gigs of DDR4 RAM.
Which you can do literally anything with.
Literally anything.
I've never had more than 16 gigs.
That's quadruple the amount I have at home.
And one of the hottest commodities in the PC world, an NVIDIA GeForce 3090 graphics card.
Insane how much better this is than what I have.
The best graphics you really need, Ultra, of course.
Content's gonna look good.
And what's the point of all the power if you can't see it? Players will also be using the Alienware 25-inch 240 Hz monitors.
Man, when I load into scrims with this bad boy, I'm gonna feed so hard. And it's gonna be in perfect picture quality.
We are so excited to be partnering with Alienware for Season 8 of the SMITE Pro League. And the best part is, this VIP treatment, it's not just for the pros. You too can get the best possible SMITE experience. Just go to smitegame.com/Alienware and use code SMITEAW to get special discounts on some of Alienware's best products. Thanks again to Alienware. Make sure you're following them on Twitter and Instagram. That's at Alienware on both platforms. And you can join their community at alienwarearena.com.
Game number 2 is in the books, and the Tartarus Titans are up with a 2-0 lead in this best-of-5 set. Before we move on, a shout-out to our good friends at Alienware for being the title sponsor of the SPL here in Season 8. Make sure that you follow them on their social media at Alienware on Twitter and Instagram. Go to smitegame.com/Alienware and use code SMITEAW so that way you can get your hands all the cool gear that our pros have access to. Look, they'll sit here and tell you, the better gear makes you a better player, and sometimes that's true. For me, when I've upgraded my stuff, it just makes me look like a better player, but in reality, I'm just not. Doesn't improve your skills, but it makes you look at least a little bit nicer. Make sure you go to smitegame.com/Alienware and use SMITEAW as your code to get some of those discounts. Thank you again, Alienware, for being our good friends and title sponsor here in Season 8 of the SPL. It's J. Mac Tucker and Mifflin joining me on the desk as we get ready to break down game number 2, which is a Layers show. I mean, Layers popped off this game. Cyclone Spin, even though they put some bans towards him, didn't seem to stop him. Just this backline, the carries of this team just got to thrive in game number 2.
Layers allowed to play Camazotz yet again, and surprise, surprise, Layers looks good on Camazotz yet again. But I think I want to highlight Paul a little bit more so. Not once in my entire time in competitive SMITE, playing, casting, or otherwise, have I seen a player have so much attention put onto him, not only in picks and bans, but also in the play on field, and still flourish to the level that he has. He is eating 3 to 5 bans no matter what. He's getting focused in the team fight, and he's still putting out crazy numbers.
I mean, they're diving him under Tier 1 and Tier 2 towers, 5-10 minutes in the game. They're putting an immense amount of focus on him, but he's still doing just fine. He's building a little bit of defense that way because he knows, hey, I'm a focal point of this team. They really want to dive and kill me, so I'm just going to build defense. And he's not just doing it only in this game. He's been doing it for such a long time. It feels every time that we tune into Paul, it's, the Paul special. He got a breastplate of valor. Oh, he got a mantle of discord.
I mean, he has to, with the amount of attention that's come his way, and with that space created, with all the Scarabs diverting their attention to deal with this mid laner, well, that creates space for things like this. Layers allowed to ultimate aggressively more often than not, allowed to do just about no wrong. Cyclone Spin, given infinite space as well. The Solar Scarabs, I think, go back to the essentially the same draft in Game 2, because Game 1, you could almost say, all right, a couple of bad starts, a couple of bad engagements in the early game kind of cost you the mid game, which then in turn cost you the late game. In Game 2, they run it back, and it looks the exact same. They take a couple of decent fights in the early, but it slowly starts to fall apart. Now in Game 3, with your backs against the wall and the Tartarus Titans at set point, it's time to see some bigger adaptations.
And that kind of then begs one of the big questions. We're getting ready to go into playoffs. The teams don't want to reveal their hand too much. But the Solar Scarabs don't seem to have revealed very much at all. They've shown their one big draft that's worked out for them so well in the first couple of sets they played. Teams have adapted to it. The question now is, what do the Scarabs have to answer against the Titans, who really don't seem to have shown much, if any, of their hands?
I mean, they've shown two distinct draft styles. There's the Morgan Cthulhu, and there's the, oh, you penta-banned Paul, so we got to do something else, and somehow Tiamat's what works through there for him. The Tartarus Titans are not in a position where they need to concern themselves with hiding strats because nobody's forcing them to step away with what they're comfortable from. Step away from what they're comfortable with. There it is.
That's the word you're looking for. Tartarus Titans here up 2-0 at the end of this game. Best of 5 set. Solar Scarabs, this is where the adaptation has to come in. If they want to go towards Game 4, if they want to get towards Game 5, they've got to start making some changes up here in game number 3. Maybe go back to the drawing board entirely. You can change up a couple of these picks here, but if they're really willing to run the same 4 gods back-to-back again, maybe take away some of the things that the Titans have been picking up. I mean, the Shimoja, the Nike, the Camazotz, something in that puzzle has got to change.
Yeah, if you're so concerned about playing against Hell, if you really think that Paul is going to run the lobby on you, is Tiamat really that far down on the priority list that you're feeling great about dedicating that many bans towards Paul himself? I think that you are in a position now as the Solar Scarabs where you can say, all right, so I really don't want to play against Hell. We can go ahead and keep banning that. Maybe the Aphrodite doesn't feel so great. You kind of have to ban Morgan Le Fay, or you open yourself, or not Morgan Le Fay, the Morgan, or you open yourself up towards that double Cthulhu draft. But maybe just let the Hell through, I suppose. He can't facilitate layers if layers is a little bit less comfortable, so Camazotz could be a good way to target out them.
Yeah, we'll see if they make any kind of adjustments before we get ready to move on here. We do have another announcement we put out on Twitter yesterday, and we'll go ahead and talk about it again. The Finchmish charity event coming up December 11th. Make sure that you're stay tuned in to the SMITE Pro Twitters. We'll have more details rolling out as we get closer to that event. It's going to be taking place once again December 11th for that event. It's going to be a big celebration of his time here with us. Huge charity event. We're going to have a lot of fun. A lot of special guests going to be popping around here. But before we do hop into Game 3, just going to let you guys know a little bit about news. We are going to have to take a quick little break here before we get ready to go into Game number 3. So please stick around and be patient as we try and get ready and get set up for Game number 3.
Hey, SMITE fans. Sorry to be the bearer of bad news, but just wanted to fill you in on what we got going on. So obviously, the Spectator has not been cooperating with us recently, as you can probably tell. And so in order to try and bring you the best viewing experience that we can, we've decided to make the decision to go to replaying the games after they've been played live. So right now, the players are playing here in studio, completing Game 3, and then as soon as that is done, we will be able to bring it to you live and cast it. We have not seen it. We won't get spoiled. Don't worry. We're not that type of person. So again, we appreciate your patience. We are just as frustrated as you are. We really apologize for everything that's going on, and we'll be bringing you Game 3 soon enough. So stay tight. Get set. Go get your snacks. Maybe do some homework. You know you've been putting it off, and we'll be back with Game 3 pretty shortly.
Hey guys, what's going on? It's me, Mifflin. Today I'm going to be doing This Month in SMITE. There's a bunch of SMITE clips that you guys sent us maybe. I'm not really sure who sent them, but we're going to start with the community. We do not deserve supports. It's a really great clip. There's some stuff going on in it.
He's saying that they can kill him. She's like, yeah. She's got taunt. That's just the noise. He thinks he can kill him. She says it's good. It was not good. She's dead. They're laughing in Japanese. Still laughing. I don't know. That Dragon Ball didn't help me at all with that. Sometimes it's really hard to come up with like something to say about these clips, but luckily the title of this clip, Cool Bounce, kind of hits the nail on the head. Like, there's not much else to say about it.
But at least we all got out. Yeah, at least we all got out too. Smell my. Oh my god! Mad Did you get that? Yes. Yes.
I'm kind of hesitant to show this clip because, look, I play a lot of casuals, and I'm pretty sure once you guys see this, it's gonna ruin the casual meta for at least a week.
Wow, what a great clip. Jordan here. There was supposed to be an intro to introduce this next clip, but Mifflin forgot to record it. So we whipped up this little ditty to replace it. Let's go.
Dude. No I'm done, dude. I'm so done. 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 No, get me out this game. Get me out this game. Get me out this game. No, like actually, like I don't even want to play anymore. Like.
Veyron, buddy, don't worry about it, man. It happens to everybody. Actually, I'm pretty sure this happened to Ducky like 2 months ago.
I f***ed up. I f***ed up.
Is Frost good?
Oh, nice shell. Straight line, right there. Break him. Get shit on.
And to round out the community segment, I figured everybody needed a reminder on why we decided to play Smite. They're all just chasing this feeling right here. Pure euphoria.
Grow up. Oh, grow up, man. Grow up. Come on. What, you're just some kids, man.
Free wave, man. That's all I heard. How are you still alive?
Come on! Clip that! Clip that!
Next up in This Month in Smite is going to be the...
I still
over
think
here.
Guardian's pretty strong right now, but getting closer to a good solo lane, I'd say.
Hey, I just met you. You're my jungler. I'm a solo, so gank me maybe. I always look right at you, baby. So come over here and gank me maybe.
Next up in This Month in Smite is going to be the pro segment. We're going to check in with the absolute best players to have ever done it. And what better way to start than with Genetics doing his like best Nat Geo impression, I guess?
The wild. The wild dancer flanks behind. The wild dancer chases his prey.
Scream doing his best Artio impression. Paul was doing an impression earlier of every other SPL mid laner.
The joke is that they're clowns. Nobody gets it. They're clowns. He's saying that every other mid laner is a clown. They're clowns.
Jay Darum thought that Zapman didn't know his damage. Well, newsflash, buddy. Zapman does know his damage.
Watch it. This all kills her.
Come on! Clip that! Clip that!
And you know, keeping in line with that last clip, the pros generally kind of just know what's going to happen. They know what to do and when to do it. Sometimes they just choose not to.
Jabansky never hit the E set.
Your left tower has been destroyed. Your left tower is under attack.
And we push E set.
You know how the casters call Terra's ultimate like a late game just win button? Oh, it's probably just me. You know how I call Terra's ultimate a late game win button? It's true. Nika puts it on full display.
Oh, trouble. Oh, soft dash, soft dash, soft dash. Wait, they get owned here. They have actually trolled. Nah, oh, Terra diff. Terra's the best card in the game, dude.
Welcome to Good or Bad, the new-ish game show on This Month in Smite, where we kind of just watch some clips and you get to vote whether or not you think the clip is going to go well or poorly for the streamer. It's pretty basic, and we'll let you know at the very end. Try and keep your score and see if you can beat your buddies.
Alright. Wukong all down, Wukong blue stolen. Seriously? I'm actually gonna get dove.
This is basic. This is easy. This is an Incon clip, guys. Come on. He's been playing this game for like 2,000 actual years. Bet on him every time.
There's about to be a Robin here. This is so frustrating. They're actually really doing this right now. Holy cow, we're doing this right now. Holy cow, we're still doing this? Holy. Okay. Oh my goodness, dude. Get them out of this game.
Good. Are you kidding me? we got more Nika on This Month in Smite. Whatever, man. He's playing against Vote. He's in the solo lane. Nika chose this fight. He better win.
No way. There's no way he doesn't dive to that, man.
Ooh.
All right. What's going on here? Axe is midair. Habois is not looking. How's the build looking? All right. Transcendence, Jotuns, Crusher. Oh, yeah, dude's dead. This is free.
No.
Bad. Wait, guys. Stop, guys. Look, your teammate's dying. It's 2v5. They're already on the fire giant. You're full tank. Don't go in. This is a suicide mission, bro. Just stay away.
Oh! Get Phoenix, move! Get Phoenix! Are you guys?
Good boom!
Go get the away from that portal!
Absolutely not! Where are you going, motherfucker?
Good.
That's it. Unless something more, these three.
I won't often give you this, Twitch chat, but the title of this clip is Masterful Teamwork. I don't trust it. There's no way this goes well.
Oh, what? Ain't that forward. Oh my goodness me.
Oh, I couldn't blink.
I haven't played Hera in so fucking long. We die. There's no way, Harry.
Cannot accept that.
Bad.
Oh, what, is there anything I need to say about this one? Like, Leon's on the screen, guys. This one's gonna be just fine.
Good.
No.
Almost as a complete foil to the last clip, this one is J. Mac Tucker, new member of the casting team. He's dead. I don't know what's gonna kill him. Dude's dead though. Just play it bad, say it bad.
No!
Oh.
That's it for this month in Smite for October. If you guys had fun and you want to participate in the next one, make sure you send your clips in. I'm saying send them to me on Twitter or anywhere else. If you can get in contact with me, if it's in the description down below, there should be something down there, like in this area down here, where you can like find a form and send them there. Thank you very much to every single one of the streamers that participated in this episode, and make sure you tune in next time.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back as we get ready to jump into game number 3. Again, apologies for the delays in the game. We're making sure that we can give you the best viewing experience possible. So we're getting ready now to jump into game number 3 between these two teams. Tartarus Titans up 2-0 in the set and looking to maybe close out game number 3 right here and right now. And if they've had the performance that they had, Mifflin, it could be a pretty nice 3-0 for them today.
It could be. The Solar Scarabs have got 2 games worth of data now on exactly what the Tartarus Titans are capable of doing, despite having 4, 5, 6 bans tossed Paul's way. So maybe we see some adaptations here in Game 3. Solar Scarabs back against the wall. If they lose here, they're done in the set. I'm expecting some differences. I'm not expecting to see Camazotz again. And if I am expecting to see Camazotz, it's probably for the Solar Scarabs. I don't think the Titans are going to change their bans at all. But there could be some differences. If you're going to try and limit Paul, I don't think putting him on Tiamat is enough of a limitation.
So far, though, the Solar Scarabs are going to continue with at least one Paul ban. It will be Hell taken off the board right away by the Scarabs. The Titans not going to change any of their draft up. They don't really need to. They've been winning the last couple of games, so they're going to stick with what has been working in their ban column. Kali and Sylvanas, the first 2, back over towards the Solar Scarabs, and now it's kind of that question of where's the adaptation in their bans? Well, it still seems to be Paul here as the Morgan gets taken out.
I mean, I suppose so. Paul's like a star player. He's one of the best to have done it. He's probably one of my favorite mid laners throughout the years, just to watch because of his ability to be not only a facilitator, but also a hyper carry. He's got one of the deepest god pools in the game, maybe never put on full display like it has been in this set here, as he's eaten a ton of bans and still somehow lands himself on the Tiamat. Sure. But, hey, look, they did a thing. They did a thing.
There's a different one. That's the first time that we've seen Umoja banned in this set, and the first time we didn't see a triple Paul ban in the first 3 by the Solar Scarabs. The Aphrodite does get let through, but so does the Camazotz. That's been raining terror against the Solar Scarabs in game 1 and 2. Tartarus Titans, they picked that up one more time for their jungler. And now a god that we haven't seen really much of in the last couple of weeks of play. She's gotten a couple of bans on her way, maybe a pickup here and there. But Artio locked in now for the Solar Scarabs.
Not the most awe-inspiring win rate for Artio, 46%, but I don't think that rightfully reflects how strong this god really is. This is the CC lockdown, the dominance in lane, the healing in these late-game team fights all really add up to a very dominant force on the battleground, as well as just having a cripple field around your feet at like all times feels pretty good, especially against picks like Camazotz. If you are able to chase him out through Bat Out of Hell, that leap is his last kind of way to escape from these fights, and it's not an option when Artio's on your team. With Terra as well, I mean, that's pretty good. That's a lot of healing already.
A lot of healing, a lot of lockdown. So much CC just between these two Guardians, going to be on each side of the battlefield. But a guy that made it through in the last couple of games as well here with this Nike. Now picked up for the 3rd in a row, and well, it was banned away from Paul the whole time. And even said in the pregame interview, it's not a god that he always likes to go back to, but if it's one that wins, they will. Tartarus Titans pick up Aphrodite as their 3rd selection here before we go into the next round of bans.
I feel like the Tartarus Titans are so consistent and somehow finding a way to build the exact same drafts week in and week out that you could go ahead and play back just about any death segment we've had talking about these guys. But I'll do it again. You guys might know it by rote by this point. Aphrodite is going to facilitate the front line of the Tartarus Titans incredibly well. If the strategy is to have layers diving, all of a sudden he's going to have the additional burst damage of back off, another safety net through Undying Love, and the self-sustain from Vampiric Patzer is only going to be bolstered by the Lovebirds of Aphrodite. And it doesn't have to be layers. It could also be your soul laner because you've got Nike locked in, another god that has immense survivability. All 3 picks for the Tartarus Titans are incredibly safe at just about every portion of the game, or maybe once they take over to level 5 and get those ultimate available. Nike gets 2 HP bars, Camazotz removes himself from the playfield, and Aphrodite gets a Beads Aegis built into 1 ability.
Well, Solar Scarabs, they're going to change up their 2nd round of bans. In game number 1, it was a pentuple Paul ban. I don't know what the full phrasing on 5. They expended 5 bans on Paul. Well, pentuple, like quadruple, triplet, I don't know. Anyways, they spent 5 bans on Paul in game 1. They spent 3 and then 2 on Cyclone in game 2. And here in game 3, they changed up yet again in the second half, taking some away from Aurora. So now we have a triple Aurora ban this time around with Umoja, Geb, and Khepri taken away. Titans, they change up only one of theirs instead of the Dodgy ban. It's an Erlong Shen with the Susano.
Yeah, I like this draft so far for the Tartarus Titans. It's a bit of a departure from what we've seen in the past. The Ganesh, something that I'm sure Agar will have some strong thoughts about once we get into the game. But I think that got his blanket statement just good, especially against a composition that kind of just has to walk through his Dharmic Pillars if they want to continue an engagement. Artio, Terra, Tsukiyomi, unless he's using Piercing Moonlight, essentially either get walled off by the Dharmic Pillars, or they just don't get to participate in the team fight afterward, which means that Ganesh likely will find some value. There's some channeled abilities on the side of the Solar Scarabs that the Silence is going to be pretty hard to deal with. Tiamat's first ability, Tsukiyomi's second ability, even Terra's dash, so telegraphed. If you throw up that Monolith, she's probably going to want to dash through that. Drop your Silence in front of it, catch her dash, stop her from exploding it. You're not getting CC'd anymore. I think Ganesh plays very well into this draft.
Well, one of the things that's kind of also changing up here with the Scarab, sure they got the Terra Charybdis, but this time it's going to be the Terra Charybdis in a lane together. Previously it's been Baronic running this god mid and throwing another Hunter in the mix there for Stewart, but now most likely we are going to be seeing Stewart pilot this Charybdis over in the dual lane. How do you think that changeup kind of affects the Solar Scarab's playstyle here?
I think their team fight just got a lot easier to perform on. All of a sudden you've got consistent burst damage from your mid laner, another form of CC that's going to be relatively consistent. A stun from Artio should line up a stun from Tiamat, which should line up a stun from Terra. There's great chain CC potential from the Solar Scarabs. Great scaling as well. Terra in the late game essentially gets a win button in Earthen Fury. Tiamat as well just gets some of the highest damage output that you could hope for from a mid laner. I like this draft.
Well, the Tartarus Titans want to close out the day, but the Solar Scarabs want to keep it going. Can they do so here in game number 3?
The Titans, Scarabs, Dulcin, Aggro, and Doug, all of us have arisen from hibernation, and into game 3 we go. After a dominant games 1 and 2 from the Tartarus Titans, and to kind of recap you on the story, a very similar draft from game 1 to game 2 for really both of these teams. Tartarus Titans felt comfortable, to say the least, in game 2, and now into game 3. the Solar Scarabs will want to keep their lengthy set hopes alive. They've gone 5 games in both of the group stage matches they've played so far, and they're going to need to win 3 straight to get there yet again. But Aggro, they have changed up their draft this time. Something different for Sot, something different for Scream. Baronic on a traditional mage. It's a good adaptation here from the Scarabs.
Yeah, I've been waiting to see if Stewart will take this Charybdis whenever they top pick it, because it's been going to Baronic, I think, every time. So we see some adjustment there that this is a flex pick, and that makes this pick more threatening in the future. But inbound has to be careful. That Hachiman aggression, always good in the early stages. I like the adjustments by the Scarabs. You know, I think that having a traditional mage is going to do a lot for them being able to actually kill this Nike. Which has really been a thorn in their side. Benji's been so dominant when he can just stack physical protection and use barrier formation to keep himself safe. Now at least he has to worry about building true magical defense up against the Tiamat. Scream on the Tsukiyomi that he's looked really good on. I like a lot of the adjustments the Scarabs have made.
Benji might be in an okay spot as far as early itemization. Runic Shield, what he opted for, remember, in game number 2 up against the Hades after a Brawler's Beatstick start in game 1. It looks like Runic Shield might be his option here. That'll help out in lane against the RDO. And then later on, if he's scrapping with Baronic a little bit there as well. Layers is going to get 3 back-to-back, I guess, to-back games on this Camazotz. Has looked good in all 2 of the games we've seen so far. And if you're able to continue that trend on, game 3 will be a good look here for the Titans. That said, we're talking about Scream, his pivot here, the Tsukiyomi. You know, I think Scream and the way that they've played with the Kali and the Bakasura, it has its place. But this style of pick is also something I think I have high confidence for Scream and his ability to perform on and get the Scarabs off to a good start in game 3.
It has to be more impactful on this pick than he was in the last 2, because when the Scarabs are playing well, it's almost always because Scream is leading the charge. And that's a lot of pressure on the jungler, but that's the job. You know, that's the job that you have on this team. So I think putting him on the Tsukiyomi, you know, enables the dive really easily, makes him put a lot of pressure on the Hachiman. Hachiman typically can get away from assassin ganks. Mounted archery doesn't do much against piercing.
We got fighting on both sides of the map here. Duo lane with a little bit of a skirmish. Blue buff invaded by the Solar Scarabs. Picked up by SOT. Are you going to pay for it with first blood, though? Scream survives. Receives some healing from SOT. In and out of the mist goes Benji, but this one, not much of a mystery. Scream will not survive. First blood to the Tartarus Titans, but Sot, he's got so much health. He's got the ability to turn this around, maybe get a return kill. Layers clawed on down, and now Benji left running. 1-for-1 trade.
But Solar Troll maybe still going, has that blue buff, but may have used the last of the mana on the entangling roots. Not going to be enough left in the tank to kill Benji.
Aurora jumped on by the Solar Scarabs. This is an early rotation of Baronic out of the mid lane. And down goes Aurora, and it is an early aggressive start from the Solar Scarabs. It's first blood to the Titans, and that's the big difference maker in the gold department, because the Solar Scarabs have been able to answer back well.
Yeah, 2 kills for them, and they got both side buffs. Inbound was able to get the purple away, and Solar Troll and Scream took blue. So a good start for the Solar Scarabs, nice and aggressive, which we did not see from them at all in the first 2 games. It was much more defensive play from them in those games, trying to scale towards their later stages, but a good rotation from Baronic. Paul is not a player that's going to rotate a lot early. No. You know, that's not what his play style really lends itself to. He's going to stay in mid and farm, so if you can abuse that, then that's a window for you. Baronic did a nice job there.
About a half level ahead is Baronic now on this Tiamat. And Paul, you know, the Titans, the storyline around this Titans team, at least over the last couple weeks, has been around their standard draft and the meta they've set for themselves, but also the adaptability of the team in general. If the opposing team starts to call them on the Morgans, the Cthulhus, the Nikes of their priority, Paul is kind of a key, I think, in a lot of that flexibility, because the Morgan is one style of comp that I've mentioned this team likes. Also like the Hell, also like the Tiamat for Paul. Paul has this ability to flip between a more carry style mid in the Tiamat and a facilitator, but also doing some damage style mid in the Aphrodite. And I feel like that's such a key piece of utility for this Tartarus Titans team. No red buff invade for inbound, and Paul will pick it up.
Yeah, Paul was talking about it in the pregame interview with you, that he doesn't really want to be playing Afro, but it's more important to win than to be playing the gods you want. Yep. So here he is on the Aphrodite once again, in conjunction with...
No Hebo for him.
Camazotz, no Hebo for him. That's what he wants to be playing, but will not get that opportunity, at least in this game. I think that, going Afro up against Tiamat, probably not my favorite. Just so easy to get jumped on, the long-range stun, the Minotaur slow.
Yep.
They just have a lot of options in order to put pressure on you. It should be a Divine right now for Baronic after this Chronos Pendant. Should be a Brawlers for Scream right after this Jotuns. I mean, the anti-heal is certainly going to come through here for the Scarabs. And I think that they've got the tools in order to make this Aphrodite really uncomfortable. And they have to. They cannot afford to let Paul just free cast on this pick.
No, absolutely not. As much as it is a facilitator pick, you do see good damage numbers from Aphrodites if the opportunity is able to arise. There's some nice burst from Baronic. The Paul in the mid lane. Currently linked with Aurora on the Ganesh. I'll hold that thought. A Cyclone
Got a
Spin.
dash.
Stunned by Inbound. Mounted Archery says goodbye. But Inbound says that's worth. A Cyclone Spin has to gallop on out and caught him a bit by surprise.
That's a really good 2 over the wall there from Inbound. Catches the dash, forces the ultimate. And if I'm Inbound, I'm saying, hey, they don't have that warded until we see Aurora come up and ward it. So if they don't have it warded, that's an easy gank for you, Scream.
Benji looked at by Sot and Scream. Blue buff a little bit away from coming off of cooldown here. It'll spawn out in just a moment, but it looks like Scream and Sot are going to hang around. But they might have to think twice about it. Paul and Layers, they're both here. It'll be a 3 versus 2, and that is a lot of early damage onto Layers. Sustain on the back end. Undying Love used by Paul. Bat out of hell swoops up from Layers in as well. Baronic over from the mid lane. That'll even the score here for the Solar Scarabs. Benji takes a lot of burst damage. He's back. He's beneath his tier 1 tower. Sentinel Zeus will extend his life just for a bit further, but that shield is going to time out shortly. Double stun from Sot on the other end of the engagement. No more Undying Love and no more chance for Layers to live.
Scream low, and Aurora can't quite finish it with the Dharmic Pillars. Scream should be A-okay, and now it's Aurora caught in the bad spot.
That's right, the Ganesh waddling away from the fight, and the last bit of damage is there. And it is S.O.T. who crosses the T, dots the eyes on the final kill there onto Aurora. And it looks like Benji will live, but that is a great rotation from the Solar Scarabs. Able to build up some pressure on the right of the map, build up about a 1.5k gold lead.
Just love the more aggressive nature of the Scarabs. Stewart steps up, steals away purple. These are not plays that we saw a lot of in the first 2 games. And I think there's something freeing about playing the same comp twice and kind of getting bodied in it. You can kind of just go, oh, well, we just got to win. Well, that's all we got to do. No problem. We're just going to play a little bit more loose and play our style. And the Scarabs coming in with much more gusto in the early game. It doesn't hurt that there's an Aphrodite and Ganesh that are very easy to fight around in the early stages. So, that doesn't hurt you, but still like to see the more aggressive nature here from the Scarabs.
This is an important one for the Scarabs to win as well. If you want to zoom out and look at the context of Group B in general, and the plus minus and everything that could come into effect, if the Scarabs end up losing this one 3-0, it's a team that has an even plus minus. They've won and lost a 5-game set, so they're even. If they lose this one 3-0, suddenly they go to -3. The Bolts have suffered a tough loss to the Titans, but they've also beaten the Scarabs in 5, and so they're at what, -2 now, something like that. Important for the Scarabs to keep fighting well and lessen up that plus minus as SOT swooped on through by Layers, but yet again, the Titans come up empty-handed on the initial engagement, and Baronic is there to follow up with big damage numbers. The slow from the Sentinel of Zeus and the shielding, enough to keep Benji on the map. But it's these 1-for-none picks on the right-hand side that the Titans keep walking into. Aurora and Layers keep walking into. Let's get built up this lead, and another blue buff over to Sot.
I talked about it at the very beginning of the set, which was a while ago now, that the Titans are very good at scaling towards the late game, but also playing, aggressively around defending their buffs. They don't just give up everything. They will make you earn it. And they're making the Scarabs earn it. The problem for them is they're doing so. And here comes Scream again.
Mounted Archery out from Cyclone Spin. Layers was low on both health and mana, and so the purple buff on the left side of the map is going to be forfeited by the Tartarus Titans. This is a totally different look from what we've seen so far in the set. Even in Game 1 where things were a little bit closer, Layers was never kept in this much check early in the game as he is now. We've seen this Camazotz at least off to a few assists by this point in the game so far in this set. But Layers has just not been able to feel comfortable assisting on any of these buffs. So it's back to farming and hopefully back to some safety for Layers. Stewart heads back to safety as the Draugr gets reset. Good news is Cyclone Spin has been able to kind of chill out, farm up here in this lane. Devo's fully stacked, Wind Demon fully completed, despite Stewart being one level ahead of his counterpart in the Hachiman. There's at least some strength here on the left for the Tartarus Titans.
And that's been a different look for Cyclone to have to deal with some pressure, because otherwise he's been able to do a lot pretty freely so far in this set. He's been dominant on the Hachiman, dominant on the Chernobog in Game 2. Definitely more aggressive lane so far from the Solar Scarabs. I mean, SOT, they're playing around his lane. Even though he was on the Hades last game, they weren't really playing around his side blue buff, you know, trying to play towards him being able to outclear. That really wasn't happening. And RDO is a much better scrapper in the jungle than Hades is, but shouldn't have as much wave clear in general. So it's definitely a different look for the Scarabs here.
Yeah, we definitely know Inbound's in the mist there. I wondered if Cyclone Spin was going to be a bit caught off guard. Maybe just the absolute positioning of Inbound, but unfortunately that one won't come into play. I'm still waiting, aggro, for one day, just a big old mist dive to happen. Watch, it's going to happen during Worlds qualifiers.
That'd be awesome.
Which
team?
Game 5.
Okay.
47 minutes into the game.
Wow, long game.
Long game.
Okay.
So for some reason, we're still fighting over on the Draugr side of the map.
Hey, there's mist everywhere, man. Doesn't have to be by Draugr.
No, I'm thinking it's the Draugr mist that's going to happen.
Okay. And is it going to work?
No, it's not going to work.
Oh, no.
This one feeling a little bit like it could work for the Solar Scarabs. Inbound and Stewart have had plenty of pressure here on left. Like seeing the Charybdis for Stewart. I think it's something that Des has talked about. We've talked about here a little bit. It's such a powerful threat, and that's something Veronic has already shown us. But Cyclone Spin has also shown what Charybdis over in the duo lane, the build maybe feels pretty similar. Map positioning, the ability to farm up maybe changes up there a little bit, but should be a good look here for Stewart as this game goes on. Maybe more so than where the Charybdis is on the map. It's what it frees up your mid laner to do, and if you've got a Tiamat in your back pocket, things are feeling okay. Slowed down a little bit here since the early onslaught from the Solar Scarabs. Plenty of pressure on the right of the map, and 3 deaths from Aurora might make you think things have been happening on left, but no, it's been a lot of Ganesh roaming over to right. Gold Fury is up here now. Could be the first tilt factor here in this game, but the Solar Scarabs might feel comfortable aggro going into that with a 3K gold lead.
I think they should. I mean, you've got a much stronger solo laner at this point in the game, and your mid lane is strong. You've got Divine Ruin. The one concern is maybe no brawlers for Scream. He's gone Transcendence second, which, I understand you want to get stacking as early as possible, but does also feel a bit greedy that you don't go Brawlers second.
Does Inbound's Pestilence help you out there at all?
Yeah, it doesn't hurt. You still get a lot of anti-heal, but you kind of just want as much as possible up against the Aphrodite. You want to turn those Lovebirds into a really, really underwhelming ability, and the best way to do that is just make sure it's not full healing her and whoever she's linked to. And with Divine and Pestilence, certainly she won't full heal anymore.
Yeah, maybe Infatuation Birds if you have it your way. Limit the healing.
Harmless Work Crush Birds.
So you and me?
You and me, baby. That's right.
No, that's Lovebirds.
Oh,
Who are we kidding? There's there's no anti-heal.
He said it, chat. He said he loved me.
There's no anti-heal in these birds. Paul sustaining up Aurora here. Inbound dashes through. An opportunity for Layers to turn around some damage, but where is it? Scream takes a little bit. Dharmic Pillar's down from Aurora, but he'll walk on out. And so if nothing else, it's not a death for the Tartarus Titans. Veronic's got to be careful. Could be a death for the Solar Scarabs. But SOT, he has been a force throughout this game. 4 affected kills. Looking to make it 5+ if he has his way in the mid lane. But he'll have to walk on back.
Really good CC there from Paul. That little knockback ended up being huge, but a really good stun from Inbound once again. Force that Undying Love. I mean, that's a lot of the key ultimates now down for the Tartarus Titans, and Sod is not going to stop doing exactly this. Why would he? He is massive right now on this RDO. I still love the pull on gold.
Cyclone Spin, piercing moonlighted, lit by Scream, who's in and out of this fight. So now the Tsukiyomi, his ult is down, so is Inbound, so is Cyclone Spin. 3 ults down for the Titans. might not be feeling the best around a Fury fight if you're the Titans.
Man, that moonlight was so piercing, wasn't it? Right there, shamelessly stealing one of Mifflin's best.
And that's
bits.
a good bit, right?
It's a great bit. No, all credit to him. That's really fantastic work from him. But I like the patience displayed there between Aurora and Cyclone. Don't panic, use a relic. Just make sure we have our own ready to go.
Gold Fury pulled by the Scarabs. Tartarus Titans, they are in range. Aurora close by. Dharmic Pillars not on the Fury, but the Scarabs were able to confirm it nonetheless. Is it a disengage, though? Seems to be yes for the time being, though Benji was low. That is a 4.5k gold, 5k experience lead for the Solar Scarab, something that in the 5 game sets that we've seen the Scarabs play, they've made great use of these styles of leads in the past. But the Tartarus Titans not a team to go down quietly. But haven't seen much. You know, I love Ganesh. I hate seeing Ganesh struggle. But struggle, to say the least, is what Aurora's been going through here this game.
Look, the reality of Ganesh is that he doesn't have all the strengths in the world. He does have some strengths, but one of them is that Dharmic Pillars is really good at stealing objectives because you put it up, it prot shreds it right away, it does good tick damage, it does fast tick damage, so it's very easy for one of those little ticks to be the last hit. Got to be able to put it on the Fury there. Definitely a misplay from Aurora to miss it, and you know it does matter because the Scarabs now in a pretty good position. You know, 4,000 gold up, and look, the Titans' composition scales really well. I think Ganesh does become very annoying for frontline, and in the late game he's annoying for frontline all game long, but particularly annoying for Terra, who doesn't have any CC immunity and is going to be using her dash in the late game. Ohm is going to really shut that down. You've got Afro, Kama late game. That's really hard to deal with.
Used to it.
But the Scarabs have Tiamat, they've got Tsukiyomi, they've got Charybdis. I mean, these are gods that do really well. The one thing that I will note is that I think Tsukiyomi really struggles at a pretty key part of the game, which is these late game assassin 1v1s, where you have to be able to beat the fellow jungler in the 1v1. Tsukiyomi really struggles in those moments because he just doesn't have any immunity frames at all. Yeah, he's got damage mitigation while he channels Piercing Moonlight, but Camo will kill you through that. That's not a huge deal. So that's a concern.
Aurora, wow, playing with fire, or Pyro, or the Solar Scarabs. Dharmic Pillars from Aurora were down, but gets secured nonetheless by the Solar Scarabs. Yeah, the only difference right now between the two junglers outside of course, their kits, Heartseeker for Layers, Transcendence fully stacked for Scream. Otherwise, both have Jotuns and Brawler's Beat Stick in their kits to work with here. Inbound gets stunned down. Layers does the same, but he'll leap on out just fine. Suppose Dharmic Pillar's a low enough cooldown ability. You throw it out, even on an attempted steal, but you'd like to have it around a fight like this as SOT. Again, the mountainous force from the solo lane that's made an impact all throughout this game. Can't do so here in the mid. Baronic forced out early, but so is Scream, and it's Layers finally getting a kill on board for the Tartarus Titans. And now the Solar Scarabs push back beneath their Tier 1 tower, but the Titans are not satisfied. Their thirst is not quenched. Layers will drink the blood of a double, and a Tier 1 tower falls as well.
Solar Troll still up front, still has his beads, and the Titans know that their time is not well spent hitting the bear. Instead, let's get the objective. Tier 2
Is this a 4K gold lead?
Yeah, it was, but maybe not for long.
It was. I mean, the Titans feel comfortable here. That's a big double stun, though, from Stewart and SOT combining in the mid lane. But there's simply not enough damage backloaded on this fight. SOT left running. The RDO falls for the first time this game, and it is a delayed 3-piece from Layers. And suddenly what was a 4K gold lead shrinks down to around 3. If nothing else, the Tartarus Titans have kept their hopes alive here in this game and are playing like the team with the gold lead.
Exactly. They're the ones group it up. And this is what healer comps do. They just force you to fight on uneven footing, and they're much better at taking these elongated engagements. I didn't see exactly what happened to Scream, but I know he died before he got his ultimate off. He used both relics, still ended up falling.
He did. And that is not, and you mentioned how important those 1v1s for the junglers are going to be as this game goes on. And that one just doesn't work out for Scream down the stretch. And that feels like a bit of a... Layers was what, 0-2-0?
Yeah.
And now suddenly just concrete evidence. The KDA looking better, much better for Layers on that fight. And suddenly Scream, who was off to a good start, has been slowed down here in Game 3. Not to be worried, though. I think you can't play worried at this point if you're the Solar Scarabs. Just because that little push goes against you, you still got to play like you are the team with the lead. And you are the team with the lead right now.
you can't afford to let your foot off the gas.
Right.
Because like I said, I think the Titans scale pretty well into the late game. But immediately concerning, Solar Troll feeling mortal. Probably after that last play where he didn't feel that way beforehand, that he felt like he'd get away with whatever. The good news is I think that Baronic and Stewart were able to put out some pretty significant damage in that fight.
Yeah.
And they aren't anywhere close to full build. So the damage numbers are going to continue to rise here for the Scarabs. It's just a matter of if they're hitting the right targets with those rising damage numbers. Because can you really afford to be hitting the target that Paul is linked to, or the Nike, or the Camazotz? It's just hard to find the priority targets right now.
I gotta say, Aurora is a man after my own heart. Not only does he play Ganesh, which is, number one in my book, and I'll maybe hold this thought until after the Primal Fury fight, if there is a fight to be had. Really will be a man after my own heart if he's able to steal away the Fury. But it looks like the Solar Scarabs are gonna back away from things. Unless they want to repull it, and again, we've mentioned not letting your foot off the gas. Feeling like you control your own destiny around this Primal Fury would be a great start at extending out this lead. Layers looks for the back line, finds some damage onto Stewart, uses 2 of his swoops. The third will send him on out, but just the pressure of this Camazotz was enough to force the Scarabs to group, head on back, and drop the Fury.
Yeah, but I think they're still healthy enough.
Yeah,
I mean,
think
they've
so.
got some sustain with the Terra.
Losing the Blink ult from Layers means that he's going to be much less effective.
He's got to be much more careful here. You can't dive in and throw all caution to the wind. Good double stun from SOT. One onto a squishy target, one onto a tanky. Both of them lose half of their HP on this fight, but it's an Aphrodite, so you'll be able to sustain up a little bit further. Primal Fury kind of being tug-of-warred around right now. Aurora walks through, Dharmic Pillars down, Primal Fury resets, Scarabs get the Fury, but it's a piercing Moonlight from Scream into the backline. Layers dueling it out just fine. I don't need Bad Out Hell if you're going to bring the fight to me. Layers has got the damage alongside Cyclone Spin. No chance Layers lives this right now. SOT immediately corrects that error and will drop down the jungler. The Tartarus Titans, big double stun from Stewart on the other end, but it's a 3-for-1. The Scarabs end up getting the Fury, but now the Titans can make it a little bit more lopsided if this chase goes well.
Good knockup from Baronic may have gotten them out, but a silence there from Aurora. I don't know if they're going to be able to walk out of here. Aurora will end up giving up the chase, at least for the time being, but Cyclone just goes through that entire fight completely unchecked, and that's where this Titans team becomes so problematic. It's the triangle offense, right? It's Paul on Afro, gotta answer him. Okay, well what about Layers on Kama? Like, he's got no ultimate, he's gonna kill us all if he free casts, so let's take him out. Who's on Cyclone? Oh, no one, because we had to dedicate too much in order to try and take down those other 2. And Cyclone just gets to eat, man. Too much damage coming from that Hachi.
Paul has enough sustain to keep Cyclone and Benji on this Fire Giant, and this one should be easy for the Tartarus Titans. Aurora's going to be the one body blocking out the Solar Scarabs. Inbound, getting close to the objective here. Throws up the walls, and the walls will not come together to deal the last bit of damage. And the Tartarus Titans lock down the Fire Giant for themselves, a kill onto Inbound, and despite a continued gold deficit for the Tartarus Titans, you really have to feel like this team has regained control of this game. The Fire Giant should be the tilting point, unless Aurora goes down here.
Baronic
jumps in, immediately silenced, immediately deleted by the Tartarus Titans. At least an answer back from Scream, but it cost him his life. It cost Cyclone Spin a double kill, a rampage for the Hunter of the Titans.
Cyclone and the Scarabs feel like it's slipping away, just trying to start going for broke, hoping that maybe some Titans members had back, but they hadn't. They were still ready to scrap, and they were ready to take the fight.
SOT, the door on your left is not going to open for you, my friend. One stun onto Benji. Layers jumps up and over, tanking up the Phoenix here. SOT has delayed out the life of this Phoenix. The Titans, they're going Phoenix diving. They're still a tier 2 tower here, my friends. You got to deal with that first. But they are not worried. The Tartarus Titans have the damage. Inbound respawns, dies immediately again. And he'll have to watch from the grayscale screen for a couple minutes as the Tartarus Titans walk down the right side tier 2 tower with FG.
Man, it's absolutely brutal. I mean, that jump in from Baronic and the all-in commit from Scream, I think they're hoping it's just a few members left and that they could feel the game slipping away. They could feel the Titans starting to outscale. They have Fire Giant now. You know, how much easier are these fights getting? Probably not at all. So they send it and they go for broke. And, you know, really the question isn't, is that fight good? Because the answer is obviously no. But the question is that fight better than what the next best fight we're going to get is?
Right.
And in the moment, you know, I think it's hard to really understand the whole scope of the game. I don't have a huge problem with the Scarabs trying to send it on a play that, you know, we know it's low percentage, but it's still 4% to win this fight is better than the 2% on our Phoenix after they've stripped our towers and spent all their gold and all hit level 20. So the Scarabs all in. Their bluff gets called, and the Titans are big stack right now.
Feels brutal for the Solar Scarabs. I look at the damage charts now. You know, you talk about Paul, facilitator style pick. He's 0-0-10 on this Aphrodite. Only has more damage than both the supports here in this game. But doing the intangibles, the Undying Gloves, the healing, so still plenty of damage, you know, with 11,000 in these fights. But what you then need to see, right, is Baronic much higher than that on this Tiamat, especially with the way that this build is. Chronos Pendant, Divine, Soul Reaver, Soul Gem. 600, 700, 800 more damage than what Paul has been able to do. Now, I'm not hanging all of it on Baronic, but that's one way that this game has slipped away from the Solar Scarabs a little bit. Maybe underneath their Phoenixes is a better chance to keep this game alive, keep the hopes within reach here in Group B.
Cyclone still has taken, I feel like he's taken no damage at all this game, and that has to change. The Titans, I know that you got to deal with the Afro, you got to deal with the Kama, but you've been trying to deal with those two, and you've let the Hachi free cast, and you've been losing for it.
Yeah.
Might as well try a different strat.
Yeah, why not? Cyclone's been 5-0-5. And all the Tartarus Titans, despite, I mean, it was really just Layers and Aurora that were getting jumped on early in this game. Everyone else was just buying their time, and the time has been bought. And they've got a little bit extra to play with underneath the left side Phoenix. Inbound thinks of the Earthen Fury. The time is now, and it at least pays off. Aurora goes down. That's no more Fire Giant buff. Aurora didn't have it there anyway. But you don't have your support in the mid lane. 2v1. Scream dove on by Layers and Benji. The Aegis times out. And the last swoop from the Bat Out of Hell will turn around this engagement. But SOT and the rest of the Scarabs will collapse in onto the Titans jungler and will at least repel the attack in the mid lane after the Phoenix has gone down.
I mean, the Scarabs do what they need to. They win their 4v3 on the left-hand side because Benji and Layers were grouped up in bullying out Scream in mid. Scream's job is to die there, most likely. You know, go in and make sure you're trading out 1-for-1 because we already got 1-for-0 on the left. I think that, you know, we lost to Phoenix in mid, but overall, I think that went better for the Solar Scarabs. They were able to control the pace of that a little bit better. They're able to knock down Layers once again. But the backline for the Titans, still a goose egg in the death department for both of them. 0-0-10 for Paul, 5-0-5 for Cyclone. That's got to change if the Scarabs want to come back.
And Baronic did add a nice chunk of damage, about 3,000 or so, 4,000 or so. Over the course of the last couple of minutes since I brought up the damage number. So that's a trend you expect to continue if you're the Scarabs players or fans. Now this Tiamat hitting some big power spikes gets the all-important tier 2 of the Ob Shard as well. So you're going to get some of that physical penetration online just in time for this Fire Giant to spawn up. Now, if we dance long enough, for a minute and 45 seconds, this one will be enhanced. But if the Titans pull it immediately, still dealing with a regular Fire Giant, might be feeling a little bit of extra comfort if you're the Scarabs and your chances, just because of the way the last Phoenix defense went. You only lost one.
Plus, there's not a lot of good secure here, but where did it go?
I don't know. It's gone.
It's what?
We didn't have a chance to talk about secure. You don't need secure when you got shred that the Titans have. It is gone. And the Scarabs had no chance. That's a big Dharmic Pillars in the back. And Aurora set up this fight magnificently. The rest of the Titans group up together. They're dealing with SOT as one. Range damage from Aurora will gift a kill over to your team. It's a deicide. It's the set. It's game 3 to the Titans, and they'll be your first seed from Group B.
Man, this team just looks like they've hit their stride at the right time. A ton of world championships among these 5 players. The Tartarus Titans looking like they could be poised to take down another. What team is doing it with and making it look this easy besides the Tartarus Titans? The Leviathans
Not
maybe,
in this group, right?
But no one else in Group B, that's for sure. The Tartarus Titans are the cream of the crop in the SPL.
And don't worry, I'm not going to be the one to do all the plus minus, all the math, all the numbers. But a 3-0 loss, that's what the Scarabs were at least hoping to avoid. Yeah. You know, if you're making this one close, you're keeping the tiebreaker in your court. Not saying it isn't. But now the map differential and a bunch of close sets starting to slip away from you a little bit here. That said, if the Bolts win tomorrow, none of this matters. It relies on the Oni Warriors winning. But you got to focus on the scariest team in this group, and that's the Tartarus Titans. They came in as the 2nd seed to the Bolts. The Bolts justly won first seed in this group in the regular phase of Phase 3. But you could see Venenu's disappointment in the draft show when the Titans got drafted into this group, and this is why.
Yeah, this is why. This team, if you want to win, if you want to raise Thor's hammer, you're going to have to beat the Tartarus Titans at some point because they won't beat themselves. You've got to earn it up against
It is,
them.
and that is a hard team to beat.
Oh, yeah.
Not something that teams in Group B, they dropped one game, maybe all group long, if that. Tartarus Titans, they are on an absolute roll, 3-0 over the Solar Scarabs. We still got one more set to go here today, but we started off in great fashion. 3-0 win for the Tartarus Titans. We'll take a break. When we come back, Dusk will break it down.
Somehow I wanna know all about you. Deep connection lights a spark. You already know me when we dance in the dark. We're dreamers. We're living. We're dreamers. We're doing this in our own way. We come alive in the nighttime. Something about
Tartarus Titans did it in 3 in this best-of-5 set. It only takes them these first 3 games to clinch it out and close out this first set. You'll see them moving on towards those playoffs, and then those playoffs will eventually lead towards the Worlds qualifiers, which will eventually lead towards the World Championships. The hi-rez showcase taking place January 6th through 9th. We got so many things going on during all this. Obviously, the SMITE World Championships, the biggest one for all you esports fans out there, but we've also going to have the Content Creator Cup. We're going to have a show match on the Slash map there on that very first day of the event. We'll have a Conquest map show match later on. We're going to have so many things packed into this weekend. You're not going to want to miss out. January 6th through 9th here on the twitch.tv/SMITE game channel. So make sure that you tune in then and tune into all the exciting esports stuff we still have leading up until then, because during that SMITE World Championships, it's going to be the cream of the crop of the SPL and maybe even more, depending on how some of those other teams, such as the SEC teams, can qualify up in there. It's J-Mac Tucker and Mifflin one more time here on the desk as we break down game number 3. And Mifflin, kind of where was that turning point there for the Tartarus Titans? Because all that early 10-15 minutes, that was Scarabs' control. I mean, they were winning that game.
The Scarabs are doing a really good job throughout the early game, but I actually sat down and I talked with the Titans when they were on the way out the building, and they said, man, we were so far down, I just don't know how we won. And then they kind of watched it back with us for a moment there, and we're like, oh, yeah, maybe the Scarabs threw around this team fight, or maybe it was an overcommit, trying to chase out Paul in these scenarios, and I tend to agree. The Solar Scarabs brought a very similar strategy into every single game of this set in that we are shutting down Paul or we're shutting down layers. Game 1, it felt like, let's dive layers, let's just keep track of them, let's focus them out. Games 2, it's Paul. Bans towards Paul, ganks towards Paul, dives towards Paul. Game 3, tried yet again, and we're able to establish an early lead this time around, but weren't able to transition it into the late game. The Tartarus Titans, they're just adept. See, I felt like maybe they were only really the best team when they're playing from ahead. Not true. Maybe they're really good from playing behind. Also true. Maybe they're decent going in the 20-minute mark. True. The Tartarus Titans are just good. I think these guys might just be playing some of the best SMITE we've ever seen. Who's going to stop them in the league, right? Maybe the Atlantis Leviathans? That's a match that I'd love to see.
It's honestly a really good question, is who is going to stop this team? Because so far, nobody's really been able to do so. Sure, we've seen a game taken off of the Tartarus Titans in these best-of-5 matches, but that's about it. We haven't seen multiple games where they're really, really struggling out here. And I think a big highlight point to bring up, something that I talked about in Game 1, I'll bring back here in Game 3, they dove so much and tried to commit so hard to taking out Paul. They just left Cyclone Spin open. He did almost top damage for his team. I think he may have just barely eked out the top damage charts. But they're committing so much onto killing Paul and killing layers and trying to shut them down. They're just forgetting about the carry sitting in the back, pressing W and left click.
Not just Cyclone. Benji somehow is going, massive in these team fights. Sure, you probably don't want to fight a Nike, but you also allowed him to play Nike all 3 games. And as you said, if you give Cyclone Spin some space, he's going to take that space, and he's probably going to take your life in the same note.
Yeah, big damage numbers coming out of the Hunter here for the Tartarus Titans. A big win for them today. Let's take a look at how the standings break out here. Tartarus Titans, they're now done. 3-0. Their first seed in their division. They're going to move on up into the playoffs. But it's a very tight race right behind them. 1-1 on the Bolts, 1-2 on the Scarabs, and the Bolts got to play the Oni Warriors at 0-2. A win tomorrow for the Oni Warriors could really shake things up in Group B.
Yeah, 3-way stack up at the bottom at 1 and 2 could have some implications for seeding, head-to-heads, all that nonsense. I'm not doing the math. I can't do it. I'm not smart enough.
I am not going to try and sit here and pretend I know exactly what score one team needs to win to guarantee what seed, because I don't know. That's for the people way smarter than me who have way more experience in being able to do that kind of stuff. But looking at the schedule, we still have one more game today, Camelot Kings and the Dragons, and tomorrow we'll close out the group stages with the Atlantis Leviathans and the Valkyries, and then the Bolts and the Warriors. To me, that's definitely the set tomorrow that you really want to pay attention to, because it will determine how Group B all falls out. But let's jump over into Group A and talk, a little bit of pregame here. Camelot Kings and Jade Dragons, both these teams going down to the Atlantis Leviathans. Dragons fell 3-0. The Kings fell 3-1 against them. And now they're really having to get a big battle out here to try and get a more favorable seeding.
Yeah, Jade Dragons are a team that have a ton of fans, but those fans have been very vocal, realizing that the Jade Dragons have been struggling a little bit in weeks as of late. And I tend to agree. It seems like they haven't quite figured out exactly what they're trying to bring to the group stage as of right now. So we'll see if they've been able to recollect themselves coming into this next set. I've got high expectations.
It's going to be the Kings and the Dragons. I believe this is one of our matches of the week that we've been highlighting all throughout the week on our Twitter and everything. So make sure that you stick around for that. We're going to go ahead and take a quick little break, and we'll get you guys set up to get for our second set.